scary movie? What's your favorite scary movie? What's your favorite scary
We all live in mad sometimes.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another recording night with Hacker Slash.
Hi, friends. How y'all doing?
Let's say
First off.
go ahead.
I literally can't see in sunglasses.
Oh, you can see just fine. You're doing great.
Oh, no. I only have one pair and they're yellow because I can't see through dark sunglasses.
I don't know how Binks is
I'm
seeing.
barely seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I was
don't
gonna say
I don't know how you're seeing through those.
I don't know what's gonna happen to me after the end of this. Don't think I'm just gonna keep these on for a bit. They're gonna make a debut
All
here
I
and
can
there.
see is flaccid penises hanging.
Stop.
Not the
Well,
literal
now
dick
I gotta.
trace.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry. That's all I got.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Well, I'll say that these sunflowers
that.
are not impeding my vision in any way. They're actually very cozy.
I'm happy for you.
It's absolutely terrific. Oh, look at this. Ryan, you've been missed so much.
I know. I feel like it's been forever. I mean, it hasn't, but it does feel that way.
Oh, it has been a little while. You have a few more left to go before the end of the year when we can finally get the gang all back together and do our end of year recap. That's going to be a blast.
Nice.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. So we obviously are talking about some fun stuff this evening, specifically a movie known as Terrifier 2, which I'm very excited to finally talk about. If you have not listened yet, patrons, you all have access to the rewind featuring Binks for Terrifier from 2016. And whew, what a time it was. What a time it was.
Such a good episode. Honestly,
Yeah, that was fun.
I feel like it was like a top 10 episode. Honestly, like no joke.
No, really. Not, yeah.
It was a good
Sounds
time.
It was a
dramatic,
lot of
though.
fun. I was a lot of fun. I had a good time. For sure.
Yeah. And for all of you tuning in this evening who have listened to that episode, obviously you know that Binks now has a moniker for the podcast. And I think now is the time for you to submit your guesses into the chat of what you think those may be.
Not the guesses.
The guesses. Nathan's not going to guess. He's just going to hold back and say, I knew it.
Right. Classic. I appreciate that.
I also,
Also,
Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, if you haven't listened or aren't going to listen to that, we went from a 50-50 hack and slash to 50%. I mean, to a universal slash on that one, which is honestly kind of remarkable.
It's a
I'm
glow
impressed
up
by us. Yeah.
for
really
sure.
something.
I was also going to point out that, and I mentioned this to Mac today, we have about 28 days to really accomplish his goal of rebranding his own podcast moniker away from the Superfly Space Guy to something that looks a little bit better on merch. We still have nothing.
So it's not just me that was struggling intensely.
Yeah, no, I think you
Okay, good.
you had some good options pretty quickly.
Some come really naturally. The thing
It's
is,
tough.
Superfly Space Guy fits Mac perfectly, but it just looks like it's not a good set of words.
Yeah,
It's tough to think of stuff.
yeah. Sean has a good one. I feel like yours is going to
agree.
look really good when we put Frankenstein behind it. You know. Oh, Katie, welcome to the party. Taylor, I can't wait for you to listen to that episode as well. It's going to be a good one. So we have a few things to get to tonight. I'm sure this episode is going to be just as robust in discussion as Terrifier 2016 was. We'll make sure to drop some links later for those of you who haven't gotten to listen yet. B-sides, I think, is going to be a little interesting tonight. I think, really digging into our deepest memories regarding clowns. I don't have many, to be honest. I am remembering, though, and I should have mentioned this, the last time that we talked about like clowns and mimes, when we did it 2017 for the first ever episode of this podcast, it was revealed that one of my original co-hosts was bitten by a clown as a child. Kind of feel like this would have been the appropriate time to talk about that.
Wow.
I would say so.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of called bullshit back in the day, but now I'm wondering if it was a real thing. It was like a biting the ankle.
Yeah, what kind of clown bites you? What is that?
A child's ankle,
I'm
no
pretty-
less.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's a lawsuit.
Oh, for sure.
It's like not casual.
Anything goes in the
Child's
90s.
ankle?
A child's
that's,
ankle.
like, illegal.
Like he got down on the floor and he bit the ankle.
Yeah, like was this like a was this like a hired clown for a birthday party, or was this at an establishment, or like
Who fucking knows? I will dig into the vault and find this episode and
Yeah.
play this clip again in the near future. Maybe we'll do it in B-sides one day because that shit was wild.
Where do you even interact with clowns like in the natural world?
Barnum and Bailey.
Nowhere.
haunted houses?
Even at like the circus, there's not.
I don't think I've ever been to a circus though.
Oh, I've been to a circus.
I've been to like
I
some
recommend it.
half-ass like fairs, but no, I don't think I've been to a traditional circus, like a tent circus show thing.
Okay, I haven't been to a tent, but we have a Coliseum venue here that famously the circus comes to like every year.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a circus once as a child, but it was a situation where maybe the group of, I can't remember if this is like a family thing or a school outing thing. Either way, we did not stay in there very long. And I remember being very excited to see what the inside of a tent looks like, and it was very short-lived.
The coolest part of the circus is the guys that ride motorcycles across each other inside of a ball.
Ooh,
That's it.
yes. Yeah.
That sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's like mind-blowing, but circus.
I'm realizing now that we're probably running our clown conversation a little thin, so we should probably actually get started with the B-sides. But first, Rob, welcome. So glad you're here.
Rob.
Rob, you don't know this yet, but we have a new friend among us, and I cannot wait for you to enjoy the show. It's going to be great. Binks, I don't
Hi,
know if you
Rob.
know this, but you have to impress Rob. It's
Oh, no pressure.
yeah.
Good
no
luck. Hi, Rob.
pressure.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah. Rob just moved to, I believe, South Carolina. So good job, Rob. You're now closer to the majority of the people who are on the podcast.
Hey.
Nice.
I'd say,
Hey.
like, technically speaking, he's the closest to all of us as you can be at the same time.
Oh, maybe.
That's
Fair
true.
point.
Actually, for the time being, we have
Just have the correct opinion.
3. No.
Rob just said, it's not that hard. Binks, just have the correct opinion.
Yes.
Rob.
That's
Yeah.
how Rob works.
Good luck knowing which one it is because it's not what you might think every time.
Gosh, so I can't do the guessing, like, the guessing game of like the probability. Okay.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can't
no.
statistics it.
Dang.
And you would think, here's the thing about Rob. Usually Rob is not here for the nonsense, but then randomly he shows up and likes nonsense movies every once in a while because they're fun. I don't know. Can't be trusted.
It's really a wild
Lovely.
time. You never know how it's going to go. But I think it is time for us to go ahead and get started. We all feeling good about recording our B-sides? Ready to go? Fingers on the record buttons?
Yeah.
Awesome. I will kick us off with a question, and then we'll just see where this story takes us. We will all get ready and start recording in 3, 2, 1.
Sink.
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 Just verifying I'm recording. There we go. Okay. All right. So our B-side question is brought to you by Zach. And the question is, have you ever felt personally victimized by a clown?
So I'm not sure that I would use the word victimized, but I will say I did have, like, again, one of those experiences when you're the perfect age to be scared, like significantly scared, which was at Busch Gardens during Hollow Scream.
Mm.
And, this is really back in the day when this was like maybe a little bit less common, but it was a clown in the costume where it looks like you're riding a chicken holding a chainsaw. So he was the chainsaw chicken. And again, this all sounds very uh, not important right now and like not scary, but at the time I was probably like, I don't know, I would say maybe like 12, come out of a spooky ride or something off of a roller coaster, and there's just a chainsaw chicken waiting to kill us all. Obviously, he didn't, thankfully. And it was horrifying. Truly, like one of the fears of life that stuck with us. Like my mom will still reference the chainsaw chicken. She was just as scared as I was as a grown woman. It was horrible. And mostly it was the chainsaw and the chicken, but he was a clown too, and all of that was just horrifying.
I'd like to point out that Chainsaw Chicken sounds like the excellent title of a B movie you'd find in like the back, like really far back catalog archive of Netflix.
Definitely.
I was actually gonna say it sounds like a very like dollar store brand of chicken. Um, so
Get your
that's
chainsaw chickens here.
Yeah.
oh, honestly, it really
Hon-
does.
It kind of honestly sounds like one of our fake sponsors.
Okay,
Hey, yeah.
but the real question is it like Dollar General or Dollar Value or Top Dollar? You know what I mean? Is it like an Aldi chicken or is it like the bottom of the barrel dollar store chicken?
I'm gonna say Dollar General because it's creative enough to not be fully a dollar. It's gonna be like $2.15.
It's the cost of inflation,
Oh.
really.
Yes. Yeah, that's it right there. $1 a pound.
Sean, do you have your clown
Oh yeah.
situation?
So look, I'm not necessarily afraid of clowns, right? I've never had a clown phobia. I have a lot of friends that have clown phobias. Um, that's not me, right? I would have to say if I had to think of a time that a clown really accosted me, right? I think of I think of, and this is going to be out there, right? So listeners beware. But I remember a time when I was probably about 17 or 18 years old at my friend's house, and we decided to take some mushrooms. And it was an experience. But I will say the worst decision made that night was that we decided to put on Masters of Horror. And one of those episodes, I remember there being, I'm pretty sure there was a clown, but again, I wasn't very coherent. But I remember there being a clown and an ice cream truck. And I remember the mushrooms hitting me very hard. And I remember seeing things melt into like literally things melting into a bowl, almost like a jacuzzi filled with like multicolored ice cream, and like people were melting into it and the clown, and it was so horrific. And I just remember just looking at the camera, and my eyes and my mouth was just dropping, like I just couldn't believe what was happening. My whole face was melting away just watching that scene melt. It was that was probably the most horrific clown experience I've ever had. Still not afraid of clowns, but I am afraid of clowns on mushrooms.
Oh my gosh, Sean, I am startled.
Yeah, it was quite an experience.
I don't know if I could come up with anything worse to do while on mushrooms than anything involving clowns. That sounds absolutely terrible.
Uh-huh. Yes, I have learned my lesson. I don't think I've ever. Well, I mean, it's not like I've taken mushrooms a ton of times in my life, but I definitely have not watched horror movies while inebriated in that way.
That sounds like if you are in the writing room for Terrifier 3. Like
Honestly,
you were talking about it and I was like, probable.
Oh yeah.
oh my gosh, wow. If we see, trippy, melty face art in Terrifier 3, I don't know if I'd be able to handle it, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, it would be traumatizing. I remember my best friend it hit him very hard. He had to stay under his blanket for the entirety of the night. Like he did not come out from under that blanket for like a good 8 to 9 hours.
He's still under that blanket to this
Yes,
day.
he's
The
still
legend
there
has
to
it.
this day.
I've had very minimal interaction with clowns, so and I think we all think about the 1990s miniseries of It with Tim Curry as Pennywise, who sounds like kind of like a gruff, smoking New Yorker clown. We have Bill Skarsgård's It from later on. I think as a kid, I didn't really run into clowns very much. I did go to this like oddities serial killer museum in Savannah, Georgia earlier this year that has John Wayne Gacy's like artwork, like what he was painting in jail. So I guess that's like clown adjacent. But in terms of being personally victimized by a clown, I can think of one time that I was, and it was me. I was the clown. Because this actually takes us to one of Taylor's questions, which is, what is the most extra thing you've ever done to get attention from someone? And oof, I'm not proud of this. But this actually, personally victimized, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because this is the pipeline of trying to get someone's attention to ending up with a bone permanently sticking out of your shoulder. I hope you're ready for this.
Oh my God. I don't know if we're ready for this one.
Okay, so pulling back on deployment, I was a journalist in the Navy, and I had a camera where I was like filming everybody man the rails, where you all like, see the boat off. And I was just like really bummed leaving home for the first time, saying goodbye to my family on the pier, but I had to keep working. And I am like messing with my camera, and I set up my shot, and it's a beautiful shot. And I catch like a visual of this woman who I thought was like heart skip a beat beautiful. And she looked down into the camera and was like smiling at me. And I was like, oh, wow, what is this? Never thought I'd see her again, because like thousands of people on this ship. And I found out later that she was in the department where they like build bombs. And I thought, I'm a journalist. I kind of have a free pass to go anywhere on the ship besides the reactor. What do I have to think of like some reason to have to talk to this girl again. So, damn it, Taylor. I invented a news feature to do a ship spotlight on all the different departments on the ship, just so I could eventually meet her. But I couldn't start with her department because that'd be too obvious, right? So I did like 3 other departments first, and then I went to her department and reached out to like 4 different people, and she was just like casually on the list. And I eventually made my way to talking to her, and it was like the perfect. I don't know, if it was like, if you could make a gay Navy rom-com, like this would be the meet cute. It was really, really silly. Things turned out splendidly in that respect. I ended up getting to know her. We took like swing dancing lessons together. And when I was trying to do this swing dancing lesson, I had already said like, no, I'm not going to do this flip. I was very adamant in not being, turned up on my head. And she was like, oh, come on, please just try it. I've done it. At this point, I was skinnier and shorter than her. And I thought, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. I could not do it because the guy actually dropped me straight on my head. So I now have a bone popping out of my shoulder that I need to get surgery for. And I had I'm surprised I didn't have a concussion. Maybe I had a concussion. I didn't know because I didn't go to medical for a couple days. But yeah, I ended up with a swollen head. And Taylor, that is the most extra thing I've done to get someone's attention. I've fabricated a new story.
Jesus.
It's pretty bad.
I'm speechless. Let's start there. Second, I have to agree. This is a rom-com situation, or at the very least, one of my romance YA books, type of situations. I think we've got something here. But let's obviously edit out the part where you have a bone sticking out of you and all that.
Edit out the possible fraudulence.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Fraudulence?
Yeah.
What do you mean fraudulence?
Just tweak it. I don't know. You said you made up a need for something. I don't
She
know
knows. Okay, so she knows the lengths that I went to, and it wasn't really completely fraudulent. I just decided to take initiative to do this spotlight feature and write stories about several departments before I got to hers. They all got published. It's fine. It's out there. It's in the. It's all real.
Gosh.
Yeah, but But that's what I'm thinking, right? It's like it's that the conflict was that she discovered that this was all, fake.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then, oh
no.
my gosh,
Well, I wasn't
Yeah.
that predatory. It was very obvious that I was into her, and she and that was reciprocated. And that
I
was
never said it was
reciprocated.
predatory.
No, I'm just saying, like, the conflict of, like, it's all fake. It's giving she's all that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
giving, like, that moment where, like, the girl realizes everything was a lie. I never lied. I just created the circumstance in which we could meet. So there's that. There's that. Taylor in the chat says, so you're saying your connection was explosive? Yes, I am
Nice.
saying that. It was a good
Nice.
time.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything I can think of that's ever like taken me down a route like that. Like the most I do is like, I think if I listen to music that someone likes, then they'll like me. Like that's about all I have.
Same.
I'll just like,
Same.
oh, I'm suddenly like, yeah, I'm really into Drake. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, wow.
All of a sudden.
Not
Listen,
Drake.
it's different for
I
us
just went
lesbians.
just went for a rogue option, you know.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that would top that story by any means. I'm pretty much a quiet person usually. I'm pretty shy, or was pretty shy as a kid, so I don't know, growing up and even up to this day, even my wife, like when we met, like I was just not super talkative at first. It took a while for me to like make my move. So I don't know if I got the personality that would go out of my way to do something crazy to get noticed or anything. I'm like the I'm just gonna play it cool and hope for the best. Maybe they'll like me. I don't know.
Honestly, Sean, that's wholesome. I admire this about you.
Very wholesome. Yeah. I also don't think I've done anything, not that I could think of anything extreme.
Just me, huh?
I'll-
Got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's okay.
No. I mean, so I'd agree with Ryan in the sense that, yeah, I'm sure there's occasions where I was like, yeah, I've heard that band or whatever, and I know like one or two songs, but by the end of it, I know that whole discography. But I will say that truthfully, in those situations, if they have happened, which I'm sure that they have, I actually do end up liking, let's say, band in this case. So
Yes.
thanks, clown.
It like ends up working out. I mean, I've definitely done like little things where I'm like, I'll realize, and definitely when I was younger, but I'll realize like, oh, I'm just doing this because I think that they're gonna like this. Like I think this is what they want, which is never true. But for sure, like that, sometimes you just gotta pick up things from people, and pretending like you like the same band as them and then accidentally falling in love with that band is like a great idea. I do recommend it. You don't look like a clown. They're the clown.
Thank you.
They're the clown you're trying to impress. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's probably a good place to stop.
Sounds great.
Well, Taylor, I hope you enjoyed that story just for you.
Chris, that's a wild one, and I feel like I haven't heard that before.
You've heard about this girl, though. This is the
I
girl.
feel like I have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I recognize that part, but then you started talking about making up business clients,
Not business clients.
making up like assignments.
Listen, my job was to tell the Navy story. I just wanted it to start with her sooner rather than later. Like that was the situation.
Which is so funny.
Yeah, listen, there's nothing quite like woman loving, woman longing, and creating the circumstances in which to meet. That's all I'm saying. It's romantic.
Ashley, I'm still not sure if I have my own music taste. Like I think I do, but then sometimes you just look back and you're like, was that me, or did I just fall into this hole?
Taylor. Oh God, Taylor. That's
But honestly, I really do agree that that's a great plot for a movie.
oh,
really
thank
is.
you.
It was
Honestly?
playing in my head. I'm thinking Hulu, maybe
Yeah,
even Netflix.
yeah.
But
You could sell it.
tuning in.
So
True story.
So funny enough, we have this joke, and Ryan's heard about this very recently, where a few of my coworkers have decided that when How I Met Your Mother needs a reboot, it needs to be me as Ted Mosby, and it's telling all the stories of like all my relationships and all my girlfriends, because honestly, it's sitcom level stuff.
Yeah, you do have more like movie TV storylines in your love life than anyone else I've ever met.
I should have also
I'm here.
mentioned that all this was happening during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so it had that air of like, ooh, we can't get caught. It's forbidden love. Yeah.
Okay.
Good old forbidden love.
Come on.
Write it down. Where's
Come
the
on,
check?
let's do it. Where is the check? Where's the check? Also, I'm not going to ruin the dream about the How I Met Your Mother thing because there's definitely a reboot already called How I Met Your Father. But
Yeah, but that's heteronormative. We don't need that.
exactly, and you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
There you go. And apparently, I mean, it's all right. You know, Hillary Duff, whatever. You know, but some would say not so great. So, enough. Here we go. We've got options.
Room for improvement is what I'm hearing.
Thanks. Are you funnier tonight than you were 3 days ago?
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Less nervous.
So funny. This right here just sent me like
just myself. Guys.
Ryan, I will say that in the few hours that I have spent in person with Binks, I have laughed almost as much as I have like just being around you. So I think there's gonna be a lot there.
love it. Love
Thanks,
it dearly.
guys. My friends all say I'm dramatic and it's really extra, and I like to think I'm just Cuban.
That's it.
Oh, not me ugly
my
laughing.
favorite.
It's really what it is.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready to do a podcast about a clown coming back for seconds, huh?
About an actual
Yes.
clown.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and cue us over to this recording screen. Yeah.
Can we confirm that we're not all about to say the same quote?
Ooh.
Yeah. Ryan seems to think that her quote is the only quote when I don't even remember that quote.
Mine includes the word Halloween.
That is
no,
not my quote.
Okay.
It's not mine. Quote.
There's a lot of lines as I was going through it in here. So
I literally.
Oh,
I'm
wait.
surprised I even wrote one down. Honestly, it's so out of character for me.
It includes the word Halloween or is related. Well,
No,
that's a
the
stupid
word.
thing to say. The whole movie is related to
The
Halloween.
movie is Halloween.
Yucca.
Nope, specifically the word. If it doesn't ring a bell, you're good, or we're good.
Mine has a little bit of a sound at the start.
oh, nice.
Rob,
Well,
first
maybe.
off, no one could be the new Mac. Okay, there's no one.
Oh
that
my
could be the
God,
Mac.
Rob! Don't start something. I think I'm gonna meet Mac on Sunday, and I don't want him to hate me already.
No, he would never.
No way.
If anything, she'd be the new me, but still no.
Right? What is happening, guys? I am nobody.
What is going
No,
on?
it's okay.
Just
In-
little old me.
in a good way. Although I don't know if you'll have the grounding,
Ability to hack things.
the hackisms that I have.
Yeah, that I do. I have mad respect for.
We'll see. We'll
That I
see.
do.
Sometimes you gotta get everybody in line, bro. Sometimes that's wilding out.
Get everybody in line. Okay.
Wild
gla-
out slashing things.
Trying to
glasses are
universally slash some nonsense.
Glasses are going back on for our new
Oh,
folks tuning in and for the start of the episode.
Okay, I can't record with mine on because they definitely.
Oh, hit the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, no, they 100% make sound. But I am
Oh, yeah.
for the sake of what we're about to walk into, I'm going to recreate the.
nice.
There we go. I love it.
I showed this to my brother and he loved it.
Amazing. They're yours now. The spare pair I had to knock the dent out of. So we got two. I'm sorry, Sean. These could have been yours.
Oh, it's all good. You know, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be.
Oh, not Rob thinking you're also replacing Alexis.
It's not a
Stop,
replacement.
everyone! What is happening?
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
Rob.
I'm not replacing anyone.
This is not the recasting of Glee, Rob.
Oof, yikes! Yikes!
All right. Cool. I think I'm ready to start recording if you are all ready to start recording. I should also say that my quote is "They lured you here for a reason," and my closing quote is talking about paying for something that you put in your mouth.
Nice.
Knocked so much stuff off.
Just
my
wanted to
desk.
throw that out there. All right.
Love it.
Cool. We will then start recording. If everybody's ready, we're all good.
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Sink.
Sink.
Sunk.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Hacker Slash. If you're joining us again, welcome back. They lured you here for a reason. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the party. We are a horror movie review podcast dedicated to telling you whether a movie is a hack,
A total joke, a waste of time.
or a slash.
Totally killer, pun intended.
We believe horror is for everyone, and as such, we're rating these movies with the perspective we've gained from our varying walks of life and the flavors of fear we fancy most. My name is Chris. I'm your friendly neighborhood slasher enthusiast. This week I'm joined by the cowardly creeper Ryan.
When did Halloween become synonymous with sex?
The classic horror connoisseur Sean.
Pass me one of those eyeballs.
And our new friend, the paranormal paramour Binks.
Ew, why is mine so sticky?
This week we're checking out a 2022 horror sequel that gained notoriety with news publications for allegedly causing people to throw up in theaters across the country. Before we get to see what all the fuss was about, though, we'd love for you to get to know our new friend a bit better. Now, Binks, I'm so excited that you're joining us. Obviously, you've joined us for the Terrifier 2016 rewind just a few days ago, but for now, let's help you meet everyone else. What's your connection to the horror genre, and how deep does your love of horror run?
Yeah, so for as long as I can remember, I've always loved horror. I have an older brother, and so as a typical younger sibling, I've grown up basically getting into all of the same things he enjoys, which includes horror. My mom as well is a big horror fan, so I feel like it's just a family affair at this point.
Oh, that's relatable. Same for me. Ryan, I take it you didn't see the questions.
Nope.
Cool, I got it.
Didn't know. I mean, I saw that you sent them. I didn't know you were expecting me to read one.
It's pink.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Here we go. Okay, so what style of horror is your jam?
Yeah, so actually, as my moniker infers, I love me some paranormal horror. My mom is, like I said, one of the big reasons I'm into horror. And so, specifically with the paranormal related stuff, she would be the kind of person that would fall asleep watching Paranormal Adventures, like if it's a lullaby. So, I think it's just been a thing of ours since I was very little. I feel like it's a right balance between could this really happen and this is far-fetched scary.
I love that, right? I love paranormal stuff as well. What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Yeah, so hard for me to decide, honestly. I want to go with something a little more recent-ish. So I'm a big Stephen King fan, so is my brother. And I really love Pennywise, good old Pennywise. So I'm going to say it, of course. Can't really specify whether I'll do the miniseries or the more recent one. I really think that Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård did amazing. So honestly, it's such a good movie, and I've never looked at sewer drains the same.
Sewer drains are super traumatic, and I dare say they lost a little bit of their edge, though, when we saw Michael Myers get jumped in one in Halloween Ends, but that's neither here nor there. Inquiring minds must know then. Obviously, you've shared a lot about your preferences and your taste, the flavor of horror that you like. But how do you personally define a hack and a slash?
I want to say it's a combination of both long-lasting effects with the movie and how many emotions I'm feeling during. I love a good movie that evokes emotions you never thought that you would expect in something frightening. And of course, thinking of how long that emotion is going to last after the fact. So I think when it comes to this movie, talking about Terrifier, we're really going to get into that.
That's totally fair. Well, I'm so glad to see. That was a dumb thing to say. That's completely fair. I think, Terrifier is something that obviously evokes a lot of feelings one way or another. So I'm excited to see how it shakes out for you. Now, folks, Binks did join us, as we mentioned earlier, on our Patreon feed to rewind a movie that we previously covered back in episode 65. A film that set the standard for gore and brutality and has become the bar that we compare every movie to. In October 2019, production began on the sequel to that movie. And while filming was nearly complete when the world went into quarantine, audiences were eager to see what the second coming of this murderous clown would be. Once released in theaters 3 years later, the sequel dominated news headlines and warned moviegoers that it wasn't for the faint of heart, even garnering attention from Stephen King, who stated it would gross you out old school. The film was made on a budget of $250,000 and in turn grossed over $11 million worldwide after its release. The indie phenomenon follows the resurrection of a murderous clown who returns to a town where he finds a new victim to target on Halloween night. This week, we're talking about Terrifier 2. What were you all expecting going into this one?
I mean, I gotta say, so going into this one, Terrifier, the original, if you will, or the first one, really became one of my favorite slasher films that I had seen in recent years, right? So I did have some high expectations going into this sequel. Judging by how violent and brutal the first film was, I was expecting much of the same in this one. I knew we were going to see more art, and I knew that meant we were in for some crazy shit. But I was really hoping for this to kind of find a way to one up the last one, and I didn't know how that was going to go. One of the things I did want out of the last film was more story or more backstory, and was really hoping to get some of that out of this one. But you never know, right? Sequels can be pretty hit or miss. There's not that many sequels that really top their predecessor, in my opinion. So it's tough, but I have high hopes for this one.
Yeah, going into this movie, having seen Terrifier for the first time 24 hours before, I knew I had to buckle in for an even wilder ride. I had seen the articles that people's experiences were like extreme. And to be honest, I was skeptical because we've seen similar statements about other horror movies in the past, right? So I figured, nah, it's not possible. But this time, very possible. So having rewatched it today, I feel like I was bracing myself for the gore times like 4 billion. It's like one of our patrons, Ashley, had mentioned earlier today. It's the anticipation of what's to come being one of the best parts about this franchise. I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah, I think my expectations are pretty easily summed up. They were pretty high because Chris got art tattooed on her arm. Like, after seeing this, I don't know how that could be understated. I don't know how that could be an overstatement of how much you love something than getting it tattooed on your arm. So after the way you guys have been talking about it, and I slept through the watch party, I think. No, that didn't happen. Hold on. I wasn't able to be at the watch party, but I popped in and just saw a couple people talking about it, and my expectations are like, this should be great. Everyone seems to really love this, and I don't feel like Terrifier really got a lot of shine for its first release. So for this one to be, while I didn't believe the articles about people throwing up in the movie theater, the fact that it got articles about that is a big difference from what was happening, when it released in 2016, I feel like, from my perception.
Oh, for sure. That's such a big deal. And I think really what this movie did was create this like whirlwind for indie horror right here, right now in modern day. This was the statement piece to studios. We want horror and we want the gore. We want the gritty. We want Art the Clown. We want someone with some personality. And we don't want just a regurgitation of the same material that we've been seeing for decades now. Except for Michael Myers, I'll always take more, thank you. Now, I remember first hearing about the sequel and simultaneously feeling excitement for the potential of Art the Clown, and having more of him. But then also unease because really, how could anyone possibly top the shocking moments we get in Terrifier, right? Over the years, I had heard these teases that we'd be getting an insane increase to the level of gore, which I was skeptical about. Let's be honest. I knew that this one had a bigger budget, but it was still relatively low budget. So I ultimately expected to experience more of the same Terrifier quality, but with an even more charismatic Art the Clown his second time around. Now, I will say, though, I got to watch this for the first time in theaters with Sean and his wife, his lovely wife. What a time. And let me tell you, in the moments before the movie started, I was low-key paranoid. If you've been listening to us for a while, you may know that I have a really stupid sensitive gag reflex. So while I'm not going to disparage the people who threw up in Terrifier 2, I did think, wait, what if something really dumb, like breathing, triggers my stupid gag reflex, and then I'm suddenly seen as like a little bitch who throws up in Terrifier 2? So I was scared. I was alarmed.
Yeah, I remember you. I remember us talking about that as we were going into the theater, and we were debating whether or not this was going to be that crazy, right? With all of the hype and the articles coming out about people like handing out vomit bags and all of that stuff, right? And people passing out or having to leave the theater. But geez, hey, you know what? What did we decide on? Like you got like a bag of popcorn, so it served two purposes, right? You've got your snacks and a vomit bag just in case. We were prepared.
Yeah, utilitarian.
Please.
I am shocked by that because I actually told my brother I am going into this movie theater with popcorn because I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, you have
There
to be
you go.
prepared. You have to be thorough. And I will say though, like once the movie started, I really got past that paranoia very quickly because we're swiftly introduced to what the gore experience is in the sequel. You don't get peak gore in the opening moments, but you get like okay, we're going to linger on this for a little while. And I found it to be the perfect balance between brutal and fun. And I think I just had so much fun watching this, apart from just a couple moments that dampened the experience for me.
100%. That was like one of the earliest feelings that I got was the beginning of the movie, and just how, it just solidified like art is truly one of a kind, right? He is genuinely disturbing yet hilarious, right, as a character in a way, and that's just crazy to think about, right? But that's some of the magic behind him, right? It's one of the things that make him and this franchise so special in a way. You don't want to love art, but you do.
You absolutely do. And it's really hard not to. But I will say my expectations of how much fun I would feel during this were, I mean, maybe it wasn't quite there. And now I am going to confess I watched this by myself, and I really think Terrifier is a different experience when you're not with other people that are being terrified with you. But I think my feelings during this movie were like a little bit more stress than fun, which is very much outside of what I thought it would be.
Yeah, going into this movie, definitely felt some stress considering I already knew where the bar was set. But this second time around, I felt nauseous just as much as I did the first time. I really had to even hold it together and get a glass of water. I mean, I think it's just one of those things where you're never going to look at certain things the same way again, just like the first movie. And another feeling I got, especially the second time around, was a little bit of confusion regarding the plot. We'll get into it in the spoiler zone, but uh, interesting. There's definitely room for some questions, a bit more of skepticism on certain plot holes, but whatever.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, we don't go into many slashers looking for really substantial plot, but this one does make some very specific choices for sure. A few things really, really surprised me here. One of which being just like how much of an upgrade we got in the quality of the supporting cast. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Tara, but we spent a lot of time in the Terrifier Rewind lamenting the quality of acting for everyone besides Art. And yeah, we got a sizable budget increase for this movie, but I'm absolutely blown away by how much we get for that budget, both in performance quality and in practical effects. But the plot really centers around but the plot was actually a really big sticking point for me because there are two things that struck me as sore spots. One is like a particular act of violence pretty early in the film, and then the third act itself is where that absolutely falls apart. We'll get into it in a bit, but this definitely had a more varied emotional experience than I had watching the first film.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, well, yeah, there's plot holes. We're going to talk about that. The story is interesting in certain parts. I think one of the biggest surprises was even before I even got to the movie, and I think I put it in our little text thread, was that I was genuinely surprised at how long the runtime was going to be for this film. It went from like an 80 something minute movie to like a 2.5 hour movie. And I was like, dang, that's a long time for a horror movie, a slasher film at that, right? And I did feel that it kind of started off a little bit slow. It definitely took a little longer to really take off. Like we got some action in the beginning for sure, but it was kind of slow. And I had to remind myself that I actually kind of got what I asked for, right? Because I wanted some of that development, that character development in that story. So I had to like constantly go back and forth of like, okay, where are we going to see some action? Where are we going to see some action? But then I had to slow myself down and say like, you know what? Actually, this is good. Like we're investing in some of these characters. We're learning a little bit more, which I thought was a really was a really good turn for the film.
Yeah, I agree with both of you in terms of acting. I think it's improved substantially, and I don't know if that's saying a lot, but I think it has. And I think it really does have to do with there being a more of an intention on creating a, dare I say, universe or plot or who knows what, the world of art, right? And so, with that being said, there needs to be better dialogue and more backstory. So, when it comes to this main character, I find myself, resonating with her a little bit more, being more interested, a bit more invested. Yes, the plot is something, but I agree with you, Sean. I think we got what we asked for in terms of wanting more and wanting to learn more about everyone there.
We definitely did, and I think it's so interesting that certainly it wasn't just us, but I mean, we spent the whole episode saying, "Man, I just want more story," and then I'm just so interested by the story that we get and how I don't know. I found myself disappointed by having so much story, but I mean, I would say they maybe like went a bit, left one extreme and went towards the other one. But I don't know. It's just, it's a lot. And for a minute there, it's kind of like, am I watching Terrifier? Like, this is a different movie, like dropped in the middle of art's absolute nonsense and chaos.
Right, 100%. Like it felt like a whole different turn from the first one going into this one, like a completely different vibe in a sense, right? Like it was definitely interesting. I'm with you on that. Like I wanted it, but then I didn't want it, but I wanted it. Like it was interesting the whole feeling through. Um, I will say the most disappointing thing for me though was that I didn't get to see a whole lot of Chris Jericho, right? Uh, I wanted to see more Chris Jericho in the movie. I wanted to see maybe him like drop the Judas effect on him, maybe put him in the walls of Jericho. I don't know, something like that. I wanted to see some action with the famous Chris Jericho, the Ocho.
Okay, so let me just be clear on a couple things here. One, I've seen this movie several times already. Two, the first time I went to see this with Sean, he was really excited about Chris Jericho. I was like, I don't know who this is. Yeah, cool. And then I somehow forgot who Chris Jericho was already because the second time I saw this at a drive-in movie theater with a guy, he's like, Chris Jericho's in this? And I was like, who the fuck is Chris? Who the fuck is Chris Jericho? Why my memory cannot latch on to this, I guess, wrestler is beyond me, but I'm glad you have that moment. And I'm sorry that you didn't get more of him.
Not, I guess, wrestler, like significant, really important wrestler to like the world of wrestling in like the early 2000s. Like
Listen,
not just kind of some guy.
The
It's Chris
Undertaker,
Jericho.
The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes.
It was the
There's
same
some
time
guy
period.
who like died
Yes.
when he fell down from the rafters. Some guy.
Mankind.
Yep. Okay. There was another guy who wore like he had like hearts. There's like.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels,
Yep.
the
Okay.
Heartbreak Kid.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, it was, to Ryan's point, that was the same time period, in a sense, right? Chris Jericho's debut in like WWF at the time was in the Attitude Era, and he opened up and debuted and just talked smack to The Rock in the ring. And Chris Jericho's he's still a champ today. He's still relevant right now.
Look at that. I didn't even name The Rock or that other guy that no one can see. Sorry. I'm like just offending there's like a huge section. And when you think about the Venn diagram of wrestling to horror, there's a huge portion that is just like an overlap between people who love horror movies and people who love wrestling. And I'm just outside of that. I am so sorry.
It's all good.
I just want to say that it really did. I feel like I got deja vu just now because the second time around, I saw the title card saying Chris Jericho. I was like, I know who that is. I saw him and I was like, I know who that is, right? And now we're having this conversation and I'm like, wow, I know exactly who that is, of course. And I gotta say, when you're first watching the movie and you're extremely terrified, anyone looks like everyone. You can't trust your own eyes at that point.
It's very true. It's a great point.
Hey, Rob's watching wrestling right now. Probably Chris Jericho.
Okay, but I think something that is a side effect, may be that we don't get a lot of Chris Jericho. Maybe it's because we get so much of art. Maybe it's because we have so much of the story. This movie, I think, lacks a lot of the fear that the original Terrifier has. Not even that I was particularly scared by that one, but I think there's like this, dare I say, more wholesome energy about art. Obviously, he's not wholesome in any way. He's a brutal maniac, but he feels like he's just having a good time. And in some ways, that's scary. In some ways, that's creepy. But in more other ways, I feel like I'm almost desensitized to it. So he's less creepy and more, I want to be this guy's friend. Not that I literally want to. Don't come at me. But there's something here that's less threatening. Nothing I'm saying is making sense. I'll leave it there.
I knew you would say something like this because when we had talked about it before I watched it, you said he's as charming as ever or more charming than ever. And I absolutely don't agree. I feel like he's so much more sinister in this. He's way more fun in the first one. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just feel I feel more stressed. I feel like, oh, this guy's literally just a psychopath that kills people. In the first one, I was like, oh my God, he's funny.
Did you miss the googly eye glasses? What?
Aside from that, and like maybe one other scene, he's just like kind of a serial killer.
Yes, but also he knows how to have fun. This is the moment where Art stopped trying to be good at his job and he has now gotten good at his job and can enjoy the fruits of his labor. This is this moment in Art's life.
It's so funny, but I don't agree.
I'm kind of in between both of you. I feel like once you get over the hurdle of this man is a maniac and you kind of try to marinate and he's actually really funny, eventually as the movie goes on, you kind of become desensitized to the comedic nature a little bit. Like, yes, there are some funny scenes, the googly eyes and certain other elements. Absolutely, I was cackling. However, I think that when we get into the kills and those kinds of things, man, I'm leaning a little more like this guy's a little scary.
Yeah, so like I get it, right? I think it is darker. I think he is a little bit darker in this film, but he does have a charm factor. I'm with Chris. There is a charm factor there, even if it's a little bit more uh, psychotic in this one, maybe a little bit darker. But I do still think that there's some wholesome art deep down in there. I don't think the film itself is frightening like a good haunting would be, right? It does have some jump scares, I think more in this one than the first one. Um, the deaths or kills in this film are brutal, right? And might be hard to watch for some people. And that's probably where some of the hype came from in people not being able to stomach it and things like that. Art himself is a terrifying villain, right? He's meant to be terrifying. I mean, he is the Terrifier, right? But if you met an evil sadistic clown that took great pleasure in inflicting pain and torture upon people and visibly like had a great time doing it, that would be pretty fucking scary if you ask me. I mean, is the film frightening? No, but I think just the art as a character, the aura, what he brings to this film is scary.
Okay, to be clear, if I saw Art in the street, would I fuck around and find out? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is that this movie probably would have been more frightening if it was shorter. Because I think the movie goes on for so long. Not that I'm complaining about its runtime, but it goes on for so long that you are constantly exposed to this threat. And so he loses his impact almost in the sense of fear. In the sense of charm, I'm there. In the sense of hilarity and shenanigans, absolutely, sign me up. But I'm less scared of him because I feel like I know him so well now.
I feel like the thing about art in this movie that's so different is it seems like so many more of the kills are like I'm showing up to you rather than like us on a thing together. I don't know if that makes sense. In the first one, it's so much like obviously we're chasing each other. It's a lot of chase. And this one, it's like this man might just show up while you're eating breakfast and murder you, and not like in a chill way, in like a very unchill way. So it doesn't like I don't think this movie is scary. I think the first one's a little bit scarier, but his like his vibe is just different in this one.
Okay, I have a question though. This is really urgent. Is there actually anything but an unchill way to show up to someone's house and murder them?
I feel like you could show up and easily like kill someone in their sleep and it's like actually kind of chill. Like I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm just saying like compared to what he does in this movie to people where they're like, it's bad. There are more chill things that you can do for sure.
I mean, can you just like show up to somebody's house like a Matthew McConaughey style and just be like, all right, all right, all right, here we go. Like I'm just gonna stab you a couple times. It's gonna be chill, no worries.
For sure, those are mob movies. They just show up and they're like, "Hey man, how you doing?" Like I just showed up, you know what I'm here for. It's chill because we're all on the same page. No one invited Art, okay? No one knew about him. He just shows up to houses
I was picturing like maybe he shows up with a casserole, welcome to the neighborhood.
with razors in it.
There it is.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, now we have this scene for Terrifier
Inviting
3.
kill even.
We're all writers for Terrifier 3. That's the real gag.
We're putting it together.
It's got a love storyline.
I love a good rom-com.
Oh yeah, so many angles.
I will say though that I think the theatrical experience for this movie, the moment that it created socially, and I think even just the lengths it goes to not hold back and to really just give us a fully imagined story, makes it one of the most original theatrical experiences I've had in a very long time. I think on paper, right? Like looking at the movie itself, we get some more of his shenanigans that feels good. It feels like a continuation of Art, but not like a brand new thing. I wouldn't say it's the most original horror movie that I've ever seen. I think in some ways the plot even gets pretty messy, so it becomes hard to decipher like, okay, where is this really going? But I think what this movie did was foster community, which sounds bizarre. It fostered energy, and it almost provided like a jolt of life into horror when we needed it most, especially given the movies that came out in October. So I think this gets mad originality points for that.
Sometimes. No, I'm not going to start with sometimes. Let's restart that. Chris, I think that your Daisy art glasses that you're wearing are a little bit rose colored because this movie doesn't feel original to me. And I'm not taking value from everything that you just said. I think this is a release that the horror world needed. I think I was really concerned when you said built community, but I think when you say built up the horror community, yes, like this is a release that we needed. It feels good. Like this is a good change from some things that we've had. But this movie and this plot line, the only thing that feels original about it is the times when the plot doesn't make any sense. That's pretty much it. Everything else feels like stuff that we've seen come together.
Listen,
That's an
I don't care if these
Go ahead.
glasses are rose colored. I'm living in it. The world's prettier through looking at them this way.
Listen,
Sometimes-
I'm not mad at it.
Sometimes you just need a little different perspective. Sometimes you just need to feel joy. And that's what Art gave me.
Listen, Ryan, you've got a point, right? Like, does it feel the most original? I don't think so. I know it does have tidbits throughout the movie that we have seen in other horror movies, but I think, and I think we even touched on this even in the last episode of Terrifier and the Rewind, is that what the movie does, what this franchise does, is it does bring stuff you've seen, but it does it in a different way and in a more unconventional way that you maybe haven't seen before. And that's what I feel like is refreshing. I think that's why this feels so good, and that it doesn't feel redundant. Like it doesn't feel like we've seen this before. It's not something that I feel like you can just call everything that's about to happen. You can't just predict the whole movie. And so while we have seen some of this story in other movies, and it pays homage to different slashers over the years. I think it does have some originality in just the way that the way that it presents itself. Um, but yeah, but I mean, I see what you're saying, so I see both sides of that.
Yeah, I also can see both arguments, but I am actually, sorry, Ryan, leaning a little more on Chris's end of things to no one's surprise. Uh, because at the end of the day, I agree with Sean. You don't necessarily foresee where things are going to go. And yes, it could be because the plot really just becomes something that you don't really understand too much. But nonetheless, I think a lot of the elements about the Terrifier franchise in general are these kills, once again, ups the ante. We're seeing different elements that are enhanced in this movie that I didn't necessarily expect. And even though there are small bits that are predictable, with the acting having improved and just overall the excitement of what is going to happen in this movie when you can't necessarily predict it completely, I'd say original points.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're on my side. But let me just say this. I think somewhere what I could have appreciated just a little bit more predictability is in the ending, because the ending of this movie really falls apart for me. It's not enough to really tarnish the whole experience. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be out here being a grumpy gills. But it got to a certain point in the third act when I thought, well, what the fuck is happening here? And then it just kept going.
100%. There's a lot to unpack here, right? For the ending, there's so much that happens, and we'll have to wait until the second half to really dive into that stuff. But you see, I mean, for me at least, you see stuff that gives you like weird '80s retro video game vibes, Legend of Zelda vibes. I don't know. You see some twisted stuff that really makes you wonder, what the hell are you watching, right? I'm a little torn on the ending, to be honest. It didn't ruin the movie for me by any means, but I do think it's maybe the least successful part of the film for me. But at the same time, like, it did leave you wanting more, and maybe it was successful just for that reason. I don't know.
I love how you brought up the Legend of Zelda thing. I cannot agree more with that 100%. I have to say, the ending just starts to get so bizarre in terms of trying to tie in this plot that they've created in this world, I guess, that they've created. I feel like there's a lot of action, right? But we also get a lot of questions when it seems like they're trying to provide answers. And so for that alone, I felt like when it ended, I said to myself, what just happened? Very similarly to Chris, but not necessarily in a bad way. Um, and, what I will say to the ending, just a small little thing, there's an end credit scene.
Jesus Christ.
You
I'm just
didn't
gonna
watch
go
it, did
ahead
you?
and of course I've never watched a credit of anything. Why is part of the movie after it's over? I don't understand. I
You
This is MCU.
Oh yeah.
literally I was watching this and I was like, there better not be an end credit scene. And did I stay around to figure out? No, I finished the movie. The credits come on. I turn it off. Like, am I reading the credits in a book now? Like, are there so many end credit scenes? Honestly, I'm cutting off like TV shows and stuff. Like when I think it's about to be the end credits, like before it even gets there. So why I'm not doing that. Anyway, I am gonna completely agree with you guys. The ending falls apart a bit for me. I think the the bits of like, how does one say? I think the parts of it that are a bit out there are too far out there for me, and things don't quite come together. Things don't quite come together the way I wanted to. Now, like at the very last like note that we're on that like probably maybe leads to something in the future, I'm kind of on board with it. But honestly, there's like a long chunk of the end where I was like, where are we going and what are we doing here?
okay? I'm gonna be real with you. Because you didn't watch the end credit scene, and because of how strong my feelings are about the ending, based And because of how strong my feelings about the ending are based on that scene, I can't even pinpoint the moment that you're talking about because it's not really the final note. You know what I mean? It's like there are so many things that happen in that third act, which is a little problematic for me. But it's like this movie has the end, the pre-end, and the prologue to the ending. And you may have been at the prologue to the ending because I shit you not, there is so much that you would have said and felt about this end credit scene. And I think that's what I'm really missing out on here. I feel like you have to watch it on the break.
Facts.
I'll
You
watch
do.
it right this second. Say no more. But once again, why is the movie partially after the credits? Why do we put the credits in the middle of the movie? I don't understand.
Well, it's kind of like the inverse
think
of
it's a-
that Friday the 13th remake where you get like a mini Friday the 13th movie and then you get the opening credits of the rest of the movie. That's what it's kind of like, you know?
I just think to me, I don't know if there's any deeper meaning other than if it's a theatrical release of any kind. I think that when you're in a theater watching the movie, it's just a fun thing to have, right? Instead of just going through the movie and ending, you want that kind of encore, right? When you go to a concert, you want that encore. So it's kind of like the encore.
But that's not movies are not supposed to have an encore. They're supposed to have a runtime. This is not a concert. I just don't get it. I'll never get it. It's okay. I know it's just me. Everyone likes to sit in the theater for 3 hours waiting for the end credits to finish. Like
It's
To be
not just you. I have to force my wife to stay in the credits. She's like, is there an end credit scene?" I'm like, "Yep."
to be fair, the encore is in the runtime of the movie. If you want it, semantics, whatever, but it's there. It's all budgeted there.
you know what I was saying. You know
Sure.
what I was saying.
Look,
It is budgeted. Put it before the people who made the movie. I'm not going to read that.
okay.
Anyway.
So obviously we have a lot of feelings here. And it remains to be seen how these feelings translate to the actual rating of this film. So as we ponder that, as we consider what we'll give it, Sean, how would you describe the gore score for Terrifier 2?
Okay, so believe it or not, the gore in this film was, I guess, in my opinion, the gore in this film is more severe than it was in the first film. There are some gruesome and graphic scenes where we see some extremely intense gore. I think gore lovers will absolutely love this movie as it is like drenched in blood and riddled with body parts. This movie is definitely not for the faint-hearted, right? The people that can't see blood, and I know some of those people, the people that have a hard time watching graphic murders or killings, right? It has to be a high gore score. In fact, some would argue that this is above just a measly high gore score, right? Some might argue that this is severe gore. So I don't know if that's a score we've had on this show yet, but I would argue that this might be severe gore.
You know, our gore score has famously gone up as high as holy shit, that's a lot of gore. So I think if severe gore supersedes that, then that's great. Because the only movie I think to ever get holy shit, that's a lot of gore was Terrifier.
We may have had something come in, but it's always been the benchmark of Terrifier.
Sorry, I just one moment for
Rob.
Rob calling out Sean for his credentials. Rob, the credentials are
we
he does a
vetted
great
him.
job.
He does a really great job.
He's thorough.
Rob is choosing violence. Rob is
Always.
choosing violence.
He knows no peace.
This is who he is. Okay. All right. Getting back into it.
Also, Chris, I'm going to say something to throw you off, so don't be thrown off when I throw you off. Okay, thank you.
Okay, because you have the gore score, it has to be correct because there's a okay, all right. I'm sorry, the animal report. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. But what about the animal report?
The animal report for this one is not great. It's Terrifier. I think it's not surprising that the animal report is rough, but it's not the worst one we've seen. I do, however, want to also give a rating on the parenting in this movie, if you guys are okay with that. That is a solid 0 out of 10. Worse, terrible parenting, not good parenting. Okay, in case you needed to know about that before you watch this, that's my rating.
I think Binks is speechless now.
I haven't taken such a deep breath of shock I know that you didn't want to surprise Chris, but really you surprised me.
That's okay.
Yeah, you might have to prepare Binks just as much as you prepare prepare me for things.
No, the shock is worth it. But you're the one that's keeping this train on its track, so you'll care a little more.
Yeah, who cares if the co-pilot gets confused? Whatever. All right. Okay. Well, bad parenting aside, let's go ahead and get into our ratings. Terrifier 2 from 2022. Was it a hack or a slash?
Okay, look, there is no doubt that this film has elevated the slasher genre to new heights. Damien Leone and David Howard Thornton have cemented their legacy in horror, and it's no wonder why there's such a following surrounding this movie and this franchise already, right? Like, this has become a cult classic. This film puts the slash in slasher, and for that, I'm giving Terrifier 2 a slash.
This movie wastes no time in showing you exactly what you're about to watch. I think it takes its predecessor and honestly just says, hold my beer. We are seeing a Terrifier universe start to build and more of a backstory. And once again, it leaves you wanting to talk about some intense scenes after the fact and then some. And so, although some of the plot points are not great and seem kind of thrown together last minute, we're getting somewhere with it, right? And it leaves you excited to see what's next. And so, for that, I'm going to give it a slash. I feel like, the feels were felt and I still questioned my life choices.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, ignore everything Rob is about to say. Just
Oh, yeah.
don't feed into it.
Bring it on, Rob.
He's
Bring it
about to
on.
be like, this girl. So, as you guys know, I originally hacked Terrifier and we revisited it on the rewind. I gave Terrifier a slash. And my initial comments about Terrifier were that it was just total gore porn. And if you don't want to watch gore porn, you may not enjoy this movie. And I didn't. And I've rewatched it with somebody, had a great time, had so much fun rewatching it. And honestly, I find myself in a very similar situation with this one from the first time I watched it, which is this movie to me feels like gore porn. Like it just feels like that's what the point was, and they picked up a story from some other horror movie and combined the two. And I really do love Art. I love how much fun he has. I think it's I think this is one of the harder ones I've had to decide on because Art still carries. Like, in the last one he was carrying because the rest of the actors weren't maybe having their best performance and there wasn't much of a story. But now he's carrying because I had got too much story, like, and it doesn't have the charm that the last movie had for me, I think. The the feeling of this one is absolutely more sinister to me than it is fun. I think I'm gonna but I think I'm gonna give this a slash. Barely. Just barely. Just because I do think if you watch this with people, I think you'll have more fun. And I do see the fun in it, but like, I don't know. This is a really, really tougher. Like, this is like a 50.01% slash. It's just barely there, but I don't know. Hopefully people understand where I'm coming from. It's not the easiest watch. I'm not saying everyone should watch this, but I do think you should watch it with people, and I do think if you can have some fun, it's worth it. But just don't be like me and care about the story. If you pay attention to the story, you're going to be like, what's happening? That's all.
This is the most remarkable moment of my life.
Oh, yes.
Honestly, I already feel regret about it.
No, it's so good. Hell yes.
I already I don't always want to be the damp blanket, The wet
Holy
blanket.
shit.
Ugh.
Well, in a less stunning turn of events, Terrifier 2 is 2 hours and 18 minutes long. Yeah, I watched it 4 times in the last month. So, yes, you're calculating this right. I committed a little over 9 hours of my time, which is precious, the equivalent of a full workday, to watching this film. And it actually got better every time. This movie is a lot. It's a gore fest. It's fun. It's whimsical. It's maniacal. It's rough in some spots for sure, but it does manage to hold itself together enough to give us the best art we've seen yet. In fact, his presence is so great in this movie that he managed to help, he managed to help it take the title of my favorite horror film of 2022 so far, and actually earn a big piece of real estate on my horror tattoo sleeve. This is a slash. And with that, Terrifier 2 from 2022, in a truly shocking turn of events, has earned a Universal Slash. Now, you can check out this movie, still playing in potentially some theaters near you, but you can find it on Screambox, so go check it out. Then join us in the second half so we can peel back these layers together. We'll see you in a bit.
It already feels wrong because as you were saying your slash, I was thinking I disagree with all of those statements.
Listen, you can do it for rehash the slash in our end of year episode.
True.
Listen, I have spent all day thinking about it. I really honestly didn't know up until that very second, but
I just want to say, you said yourself 50. What did you say? 50.1.
50.01.
That's over the fence, fam.
That's just enough.
You picked a
Listen,
side.
This is horseshoes.
Listen, babe, I already had you
That's
penciled in
passing.
as a hack, so I had to go back and undo that.
I'm penciled myself in as a hack.
Mm.
I even talked about it earlier and I was like, "Ugh, it's not good. But
Wow.
I recognize my environment will affect it.
Wow. What a
But I am
time.
going to spend the rest of this episode trashing this.
Of course you are. Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's just got to happen. Sometimes it's got to happen. Well, folks, give us just a moment. We're going to take a very brief break. And when we return, we'll dive into the sponsor and the second half of this whole episode. We'll see you in a bit. All right, welcome back. We have returned from our small slumber, refreshed, ready to go, ready to do the second half of this episode. But first, we have to do our sponsor read, brought to you by Ryan.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Hold on.
All right, I feel like I need to
It is
catch up on
fine.
the chat too. Let's see.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the categories of things going on? Because I'm seeing some discourse about X, and X was a fantastic movie. It was my favorite movie until Terrifier 2.
We're in agreement about that. There's some Scream conversation.
There
Rob
is.
wants to date a hot rich person.
Hot Rich is not a good combo in Miami.
That's
It
what we
comes at
said.
a price.
That's how it came up.
Comes at a
Yes.
price.
Like I said, hot and rich is nice unless you want love and kindness.
I want
Mm.
approachable, cute, and surviving. That's good.
Yeah, surviving. Also, in Miami, really important that you find someone who will tell you what they do for a living.
Yeah.
Kind of a significant point.
Yeah.
You
and
can
be prepared for the answers.
that if you get the answers, they might be wild. If you don't get the answers, your mind can never imagine what they actually do. It's not something you want to imagine.
Yeah. It's a time. I've been striking out on Hinge. So you Taylor and Ashley, you neither of you should have that much faith, because that's not a great profile. It's pretty slim pickings down here.
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of hate how much they make you do on Hinge. Like, I was around in like the days of just Tinder, like, and it's just pictures. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's too much like trying hard and like virtue signaling and stuff in like a whole
Virtue
profile.
signaling.
Like, I just want to
Oof.
see if I'm. Oh, I mean, it is a bunch of people on there are just like
Mm.
anything. I don't know. Anyway,
There's
I
a-
feel like it's
There's now a picture of me
Start
in
with some
sunflower
pictures.
glasses, so it's not too much virtue signaling there.
not from you, but you would be rare compared to other people there.
Maybe that's why it's not working.
But I'm just saying, like, in the days of Tinder, it's just like, is this person attractive? Then we can have a little conversation, see where things go.
Tinder's still around, but it's even more weird now than it was back then. It's also never
Yeah.
been great for lesbians. Maybe just me. It's just never been great for me.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying it was ever great. I just feel like Hinge is a lot.
It gets results. It gets results. Okay. I think
So
we're
much
ready for the
information.
sponsor.
Okay. Sure. I'm going to go for it without pre-reading. I'm just going to wing it. Do I need a accent? Am I just doing me?
I think enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. Are you a serial killer? Is an egg and toast just not a well-balanced breakfast for you? Rather than a boring cereal, get your day started with a bang with Arts Krispies. It's hard to find a cereal that is both nutritional and fun. This unique cereal is not only delicious, but also packed with mystery prizes that will keep you entertained for hours. Like razor blades, grenades, human teeth, rusty hacksaws, rusty spoons. Too many rusty things back to back. Human teeth, rusty hacksaws, loose change, old spoons, thumbtacks, shards of glass. Arts Krispies cereal. It's a blood pumping good time. I think there's really a line that needed to be in between those, but it's okay.
I love it. Great job.
It was
Blood
good.
pumping.
Thanks.
Good time.
Blood pumping good
The
time.
blood pumping good time.
After the way you behaved on this episode, Rob, I did nothing. I did nothing.
Oh my god.
Oh, Taylor, show me, please.
Oh
I
yeah,
miss the
Taylor, we can
nonsense.
compare screenshots over terrible lesbians on dating apps. It'd be a great time. Okay. We feeling good?
All
Feeling ready to rock and roll through the second half of this episode?
Let me
Yes.
just take a quick look at Cullen's toys here. I thought I heard a squeaking.
Oh yes.
Oh no. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you got a squeak?
All right. We're gonna. Yeah, but it's his favorite toy, and I can't do
Oh,
that to
yeah,
him.
you did deprive him
So
of and force him to only go to the rope last time.
Homemade rope.
Okay. All right. Let's see what happens.
I just need like 1 second to bring my
Sure.
thoughts together.
Sure thing. We're really just gonna let the moment guide us. I swear to God, if any of you steal my favorite scene,
Go with it.
you're dead to me. It's the one scene I feel
Well,
very passionately about.
Oh
I-
no.
I already knew.
Is it what I think? Oh,
What do you think it is?
Probably.
Is it the?
I don't know.
Oh no, actually.
I'm
no.
glad you knew what I meant, though.
Okay.
That's,
all right.
that's what I think. That's
Right.
what I thought it was.
Look at me like showing it to you without remembering that we're on a YouTube live stream and everybody can see me do that. Yeah,
Yep.
I should just describe what the scene was. That's what I should have done.
Okay, Rob, I'm on board with you about this movie not necessarily being perfect, but there's more than one good scene.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's right.
Let's
Like,
be real.
I think we all can universally agree on that.
Absolutely.
You did it,
Yeah.
Taylor. Oh my God, this is wild.
Oh, yeah.
Literally wild. Hold on.
Yeah, I love it.
Happily married. See, this is the problem with trying to find women on dating apps. They're all married to men. That's the problem.
Oh gosh.
Looking
I'm
for men
sorry,
with large or any curious girls. Okay.
There are 4, Rob.
Yeah, this is very common. This is very common. This is basically, honestly, yes. Actually, this is why, I mean, I have these dating apps, but I've given up on the idea of actually meeting anyone on them. Wow. Okay. That was I wish I could just remark that as a spoiler, but I don't think I can.
I just want to say, Ashley, I wanted to make the joke and say dating Appa would be really hard. And I think that was a niche joke. And then you edited your comment, but I can't resist saying it. And I don't even know if anybody will get it. But it felt good in my heart.
I'm
Now I said
glad.
it and I still feel good about it.
I'm glad you had that experience.
Me too.
The chat. Too good. Spam.
Yeah, the problem with the spoiler tag is you can't re-spoil it after you've unspoiled it.
Hold on. Has
Or
it
the opposite.
Art the Clown. There we go. One big GIF will do it. Okay. We ready to rock and roll?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a beautiful song you had there. All right. We will start recording in 3, 2, 1.
Sync.
Sync.
Welcome back, folks. You are now entering the spoiler zone for Terrifier 2, which has surprisingly earned a Universal Slash. Now, we have a lot to get to here, but before we get into the specifics of our ratings, Sean, take us through the kills.
All right. So let me start by talking about the actual deaths in the film, right? And I'm going to split this up a little bit, right? So there is a total of 9 deaths in the film, 10 if you include Art at the end. But then we also have the Clown Cafe massacre, right, in Sienna's dream. And in that dream, there's a total of 17 deaths. So that brings us to like something like 27 deaths, which is a pretty high kill count in this film. And all of these kills were pretty graphic and brutal and unique, right, in their own right. But there was some interesting things that I would say that goes along with some of these kills, right, that we've learned. So Leone stated that one of the most complex kill scenes that they tried to film, or that they did film rather, was when Allie was being killed in the bedroom, right? They had built like a life-size animatronic dummy of Allie, and the whole room was essentially a set that they had to build, and they used rods under the bed and behind the wall to move the dummy around. They used like rubber gloves and tubing in her chest to make her appear to be breathing. which is pretty incredible, right? That's pretty awesome just to see how that kind of scene comes to life.
Let me tell you, that animatronic was so, oh, I'm going to say jarring, but I don't mean it in a negative way. But it was so obviously an animatronic that felt appropriate for the movie, and it really just reminded me of every like really great haunted house I've ever been in.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one of the awesome things about this film, right, is that the majority of the effects in the film are practical effects, right? So that's what really makes this special. Now, they did use some digital effects in some scenes, right? When Ricky, in the costume shop, the guy behind the counter, right, gets killed. They did with the actor's face. They did have to digitally put that part was digital with like the eyeball. So when he gets stabbed, they wanted to see the eyeball kind of opening and closing in the face as it's twitching. And they did also use like digital effects. From what I understand, in the bedroom kill scene that we were talking about with Allie, because they wanted to digitally put the actress's like real eyeball on the dummy. So when she wakes up, the eye kind of opens.
Yes, but they definitely in 2022 have a great balance of practical effects versus like if you need some digital stuff, add it in, but it feels so practical in such a good way.
It's just a light little
Oh,
dusting of
yeah,
digital.
absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of the animatronic, going back to that, I gotta say, initially it reminded me of the Mummy ride at Universal Orlando. Now, I say that not to say that it wasn't good, but kind of like it was at first pretty apparent to me that it was an animatronic, but I was still impressed by the fact that they really put in the effort to make it more lifelike in some ways, really putting in the effect that you're really trying to capture the fact that she's somehow still alive despite all of this. And then the other things that I'm thinking of in terms of visual elements, the sound effects and score, I really loved it so much this time around. It's all about the synth. The synth sounds, it just hits a sweet spot.
Oh, for sure. The music was actually like a really solid element of the movie this time around.
I think it's important with these kills, we got to pick favorites. And I have a really simple favorite, which is Jeff getting stabbed in the dick.
Okay, listen. We wondered, would we get another hot dog? And yes, we did in a different way.
We did, but we didn't, same, but different. I just feel like I think that was one. It was really simple. We knew it was coming. And it's just the perfect art kill. And, it is nice to see him brutalize a man for once. If we're going to do it, art is constantly murdering women horribly. So, they got to be a little bit back and forth.
I think there is the assumption that he bled out, though, because if we see this man in Terrifier 3 dickless, count me out.
Be careful with the assumptions in Terrifier.
I want to agree in terms of that particular kill. I'm having a hard time picking a favorite, I'll be honest, but in terms of that one, I outright laughed so hard, especially when I saw just the tip. Come on, that was fanfare, and I ate it up.
Did you notice that was on his t-shirt when they were out as well?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
That was like
Fantastic.
he decided to dress up, and that's what he went with.
That's awesome. My favorite kill was Allie's mom, but I don't want to steal the thunder because I know that's probably somebody's favorite scene. So we'll probably talk about that more. But that was my favorite kill. There's so many good kills in this film, right? Even just the beginning, right, when Art is just like brutally killing the coroner or the person in the morgue, and he's just smashing the face in, and he's taking the eyeball out, and he's putting it in his like as his own eyeball. Like that whole scene was so gruesome and just such a great start to the film that's got to be my runner up.
Honestly, a great runner up. Your favorite kill, also an excellent kill. It is among my favorites as well. But I think the one I'm going to go for is less about it being what I think is like the best kill in the movie, but more so like a satisfying conclusion to a character that I did enjoy seeing on screen, and that's Brooke. Brooke is the sketchy best friend who really does not put Sienna in a great situation at all. I'm sorry, drugging your friend is never okay. But I think the actress herself has really great final girl energy. I would love to see her in more horror movies after this because as much as I find a lot of what her character does and says to be really, unlikable, I found myself enjoying her so much. And when she gets her kind of like, not a final girl kill scene, but when she gets this really thorough, just like brutal death in the bathroom, this is a point where I had to use the bathroom so badly watching this movie. And I was like, the further we got into it, I'm like, fuck, this movie is so long. I don't know when to go. And I got up, went to the bottom of the stairs, and then I stuck around just to watch this because I didn't want to miss a moment of it. And I thought it was pretty satisfying.
Oh, that bathroom is absolutely it's a satisfying kill, but just the
What just happened? What just happened?
just walked in my room.
Oh no, not the walking into a room during a live stream scare.
I'm so sorry. Jesus Christ.
Terrifier.
Oh, that's gonna be a clip.
Okay.
Nice.
Jesus. Okay, real life jump scare. Okay, I'm gonna compose. The look of that bathroom was so creepy and disgusting, and it was like, oh, this is decorated for a haunted house, but it was also just like art's horror has happened here, it's a weird balance of, are these fake effects or is this just how disgusting art is? And that whole scene, that whole room, it was horrible.
Okay,
I
but
mean, to your point. Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, to your point about art was here, it was literally written on the wall. I mean, that bathroom, the way that it was disastrously done, his trademark through and through.
Okay, so what's worse though? This bathroom, what he does to the pizzeria bathroom in Terrifier, or the original bathroom from Saw?
Oh,
Definitely Saw loses. I think
Yeah.
this one's worse.
I think we need a tier maker stream ranking bad bathrooms in horror movies.
Anything for a spreadsheet.
Anything for a spreadsheet, you know me well.
Anything for a spreadsheet. Okay, but to answer the question, I'm gonna go with the pizza scene, or the pizza bathroom. I'm like I said in the episode for Terrifier. Shout out to Ramon who had to clean that up. He does not get paid enough. And well, I mean, we know what happened to him, but yeah.
Okay, is it worse because, at least in this movie, in this bathroom, it's disgusting and it remains disgusting, but it's really the adding the insult to the injury of him mussing up someone else's bathroom that really just makes it even worse? I think that would be it for me.
It's worse that the pizzeria guy had to start cleaning it up. Like, it sucks that he even had to like think that was his job.
Imagine that being the last thing you do before you die. Not really. That's
I
really
was just
shitty.
about to say that.
A sad time.
Terrible. You just have to clean all that disgusting bodily fluid and whatever up, and then you just die. That's your thanks.
And I'm thinking to myself, when they walked into that bathroom, did they really think that all of that came out of that man? Did they think, was it our pizza? Did he have some of our pizza and we got him sick? Like, that was excessive.
Okay. So I do have to say that when I was in the Navy and we had general quarters, we had to like close some hatches and things on the ship. That creates a really weird pressure and air suction thing. And our toilets would explode every single time we did that. And so we literally had to go clean shit off the walls every single time.
Oh my.
So
Oh,
I think
no.
I would also quit the pizzeria if I ever saw that. You couldn't pay me enough to do it.
No way.
So to get away from all of that disgusting stuff. I have a very simple favorite visual, and I'm very thankful that it's different in this movie than it was before. Because before I was just like looking at art is the best. But this time it's a little bit different. It's looking at Sienna. Sienna's outfit in this movie, it's not just about her, it's about her look with these wings and this. First off, just seeing her like make the costume adds so much quality to it because if we saw her pick it up from a store, I probably wouldn't care about it as much, but it's just such a cool look, especially as she kind of devolves and gets like bloody and beat up a little bit and stuff like that and never loses the wings. It's just so cool. And like, I think it's such a stark contrast to what the clown looks like that it makes it more interesting and like, I don't know, it really makes her stand out. Like, she's gonna be a superhero in this movie.
You know, when I saw her, I thought, look at her making a costume just like Ryan would if Ryan was a final girl in a horror movie.
Honestly, I've never committed to making a costume that intense. I usually just commit to intense makeup for costumes and that like the actual outfit I don't care. But this made me want to be a better person and was like, "Oh my god, I can like I'll just make all this stuff." It's so cool. I love it so much.
Yeah, I am a big, big costume kind of gal. I have such mad respect for costume design. And once again, just killed it and really upped the bar in terms of this movie. And I'm obsessed with Sienna. I have to be honest, that costume, don't be surprised if I try to be that for Halloween next year.
That's awesome. Yes, I agree. I think the costumes and the wardrobe and Sienna all great. I think my favorite visual element in this film, it has to be the effects for me. I think just the amount of work that they did with 99% of the effects being practical is just so impressive, and it was so good to watch, right? Like just what they could do to make those scenes really feel realistic and feel cringy and feel like you're actually seeing some of these deaths, I think is just it's just really incredible to watch. So my favorite visual element, has got to be the effects for sure.
You know, it's so hard for me to hear all this and not still circle right back around to art being my favorite visual element because the man's prosthetics are just so good. But I think I really want to pull back and think about just the quality of the cinematography in this film. A, yes, we got a better budget, but B, this movie is shot so beautifully, even when it's so disgusting, and it loses, I think, some of that like horrendously low budget suffering that we got in some of the angles in Terrifier. And looking at just like the quality of this film, I think about, the clown cafe scene, for example. I think about Sienna and the extreme close-ups we get of her face when she's at school hyperventilating and kind of piecing everything together. This movie just looks solid. This movie looks like more than $250,000 worth of movie. And I think they really outperformed their budget in that respect.
I agree. It's like they took just enough of the grunginess away because I would say it's 2016, the original Terrifier, it was just a little too far for its time period. It was a little too 2000s feeling in some scenes. So they took that away and it gives it just enough of like a polish to feel current without leaning too far into like what we've seen in some modern horror where this still kind of has that like could it be a B movie feel, but it's just a little bit better. I do just want to throw out one thing before we move on because it was mentioned earlier. Binks, you said you love the synth, like the 80s synth vibes. I hated the 80s synth vibes because they felt so inappropriate. I don't understand why there were 80s synth vibes until like the end scene where things start glowing and magically people are alive that died. Until that point, there was no reason for me to be hearing 80s synth when this takes place in like 2018.
Allow me to quote the man at the drive-in who really tried to warn me about what I was getting myself into when I watched this for a second time. It's an 80s slasher made in 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool, but
It's the vibe.
right, but because of the world that we're in, where we've been through like Stranger Things and all this stuff, it just feels like we're just like tacking on a vibe because people like it, but there's no reason for it to be in this movie.
I think the thing is, though, you're overlooking a lot of the other 80s elements that are ingrained in this movie's DNA, starting and ending with the gore and the absolutely like slapstick approach to the kills in this movie. So, like, I see how like visually you can look at some parts of this movie and think, oh, this is very different. It doesn't seem to match the music. But when you look at, I think, the third act, when you look at some like the emotional strings that are tied in this movie, when you look at some of the weird stuff that happens with the weird glowing magic sword. Yes, Rob, you called it out in the chat. When you look at all of that together, this really is an 80s movie just put in modern time.
Yeah, they definitely have. It definitely has an '80s feel in there, right? I agree with that. And I agree with you, Ryan. I feel like some parts of it is kind of off-putting in a way. I even remember specifically when we're watching scenes of them in Sienna's house, right? Like, I actually went through a few minutes where I felt like we were in an even older time period. Just the way it looked inside the house to me almost threw me off. Like, I was like, are we in the 70s in this house? Like, it just threw me off a little bit there. Um but yes, but I do think it was intentional to have kind of like an 80s vibe to the movie.
For me, I think it is a little bit of that association that you were saying, Ryan, but to me, it just came off positive, right? Like that I saw a lot of the other 80s elements. And to me, when I hear that synth sound and I hear it with a modern slasher like Terrifier or Terrifier 2, I just think I can just piece it together. I think it did a really good job of setting the scene without being so overtly like obvious about it. But I can see where maybe it didn't really seem like the time period stuck to the 80s sound.
Okay, so you know how like when people will like decorate a house or something, and they'll okay. Okay, you know how people like romanticize a time period and it'll be like, "Oh, look at all this cool like mid-century modern furniture." But the reality of the mid-century was that our houses all had this old craftsman stuff and it was ugly. Like, you know what I mean? Like 90s were cool. Like, yeah, 90s were cool, but everything in my house was floral print, bro. Like, it wasn't actually cool at the time. That's what it kind of feels like for me. 80s synth, like the synth that they use here feels like clean, cool 80s, and the movie feels like down and dirty legit it's the 80s like that's kind of the difference for me, but it's okay. Again, that can just be me.
So you wanted the music to be dirtier?
I mean, the movie's not super clean cut. Like, it's not as bad as Terrifier, but yeah, give me some dirty synth. I don't know. Okay, I don't know, but I'm just that's where my brain is about it. It's just a separation.
Which I think is pretty interesting when thinking of like dark and dirty and like very deep synth to perhaps match the tone of the kills and whatnot. When I look at the movie just for at face value in terms of cinematography, like you were saying, Chris, and maybe just overall lighting, Terrifier 2 seems very light hearted in the sense that it's a lot of daylight, a lot of obviously fluorescent light because we see a lot of indoor scenes, all of these elements that are so opposite of the first one. So I almost think to your point, I would have expected more grungier synth uh, in the first movie versus one expecting it in the second, but either way.
Speaking of the first movie, my favorite scene is my favorite scene because it reminds me of the charm and love of art in the first movie. And it's obviously the Halloween store. Halloween store art is so funny. And like when this man is pulling stuff out of his bag, and every once in a while, right when the cashier's sick of him, he'll drop a couple coins. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Here's a couple coins, gives him a second, another set of tools and killing devices, and then more coins. Obviously we get the iconic sunglasses scene. Like, he's just the perfect creepy funny art for me in that whole bit in the Halloween store.
Oh, that's such a good moment. And really, it gets to the point where, look, if I see Art the Clown in my store, it's closing time, and that man picks up a horn, he's keeping the horn. I'm not trying to charge him for the horn. 99 the fucking horn. Surprise and delight the horn. I don't need it. I don't need it. Am I going to get fired for not having a horn? Give this man his due and get the fuck out of there. You really lost your life protecting someone else's inventory, and that wasn't the move, sir. But I think the delight that we have in that scene is just so palpable. It really is such a standout moment. Even like seeing him cycle through the different glasses, even the moment where he's like taking the horn and she's like, please no. Just this like violation of boundaries that is so unsettling, but also so damn funny. And Sienna's opposition to that is just so well done in that moment. But I think my favorite scene is actually the moment we get to see him interacting with kids. And this movie is interesting because it's not just art after two young women who are like fully grown adults, but we actually see him interacting with minors, right? So there's a little ghost girl, and we know that he's killed a child. He does not have the same reputation as like Michael Myers, for example. Like Michael Myers doesn't kill kids. All bets are off with this guy. And so the hunting that he does of Jonathan in this movie, but then also the way that he interacts with those trick-or-treaters,
So good.
it was just like, what's going to happen here? So I absolutely love, that we don't see the mom die. We just see the aftermath of her vicious death. But then to convert her head to a trick-or-treat bowl, to then put candy in the trick-or-treat bowl, and then to pass it around, the interaction that we get from the kids, the mom just saying, yeah, okay, just put it in the bag and keep it pushing. But then for him to smack the kid's hand who went back for seconds, I fucking love that scene. And it was at that moment that I knew no matter how bad the rest of the movie got, this movie was a fucking slash. Because art with trick-or-treaters, priceless.
100%. That's the most iconic scene in the movie for sure. I mean, that's the greatest. It makes me want to try to recreate some kind of fake head with blood coming out of it, hollowed out, where I can put candy into, so I can hand that out to children myself on Halloween. It's just such a brilliant idea.
Okay, so when I went to the drive-in, there was a guy dressed as Art the Clown, and he was just kind of going up to different cars. One car was like a convertible, so he like hopped into the back seat with them. He tried to reach into the doors or knock on the glass, but then at that point in the movie, he actually got the head, like a fake head with fake blood, and then put little Kit Kat bars in there. Went trick or treating to all the cars. Great time.
Very wholesome. Very wholesome. And the only thing that was running through my head as you're explaining that scene is Art a family man?
I think so. Is he
I think-
great with kids? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's great with kids.
I mean, he's got one with him all the time. As it turns
Honestly,
out.
Art to the little pale girl is like the Mandalorian to Baby Yoda Grogu.
Wow.
Yeah,
The
really.
the Star Wars Terrifier 2 pipeline? Never
Oh
thought.
my god.
Here we
I
are.
hate it.
Very few things that I can not connect to Star Wars, so you're welcome. And this has been a great year for dads on screen.
But actually, speaking of the little pale girl, not one of my favorite scenes, but maybe up there, is just her introduction. I was not expecting it. Right off the bat, was not expecting this character whatsoever. And do I even understand her purpose? Definitely not. But instantly, I saw her face, wasn't ready for a mini Art, that's for sure. And she was just as funny as Art was right off the bat. So I give so much props to that young woman for her acting skills, because
Right?
she nailed it. She nailed it.
I wasn't ready for the liquid being expelled from her.
Oh my gosh.
Is anyone? Honestly.
No one really could be. And the other thing I wasn't ready for was the most important thing that we learned during that scene, just that Art is raw dog in his costume, no underwear, just butt
Oh, yeah.
cheeks.
Yep, that's it.
Please.
How could I forget that? Oh my god, you're so right.
You
Oh.
should forget that.
It's
Oh.
so bad.
A little pasty butt.
Not the
But-
pasty butt.
That scene is really so good when they're playing patty cake and she's not there. Like, I don't understand what she does. I don't understand her existence, where she came from. it's just some part of art psychosis, I guess. But regardless of if I understood it, it was an enjoyable part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think all we really know, at least I believe, is that he's one or she's one of the victims of art, right? And so whether it's his psychosis or not, she's definitely one of his victims. But yeah, that little girl did an amazing job and made her some really like shocking scenes and really like ooh hard to look at. First, when I first saw her, I was like, whoa, what is that? What are we looking at? But hey, you all shared probably some of the best scenes in the movie, but there is obviously one scene that can't go unnoticed, and that's the mashed potato scene, right? That's
Oh,
when,
fuck.
come on, we've got to talk about that, right? Like with that Sienna's mom, right? Sitting at the dinner table, and I don't know why I'm blanking on the little brother's name right now. Uh,
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Yeah, so Jonathan comes home and sees his dead mother at the dinner table, and Art is shoving mashed potatoes into her face. Like, that is a graphic, gruesome, ridiculous, over the top scene, and it's got to be in the top 5 for sure.
That is so disgusting, and it's also something that was replaying in my head constantly when we were having our Thanksgiving discussion for the B-sides for Terrifier. And I've seen so many Art's mashed potatoes recipes circulating the internet in the aftermath of that scene. And just really, again, let's take a moment to just talk about what an impact this movie has. Because, again, if you've been with us for a while, you know that I don't cope well with the idea of mothers dying in movies. It's like a deeply rooted, I don't know what in my psyche, where like the second a mom dies, I'm done. I'm start crying uncontrollably. Then I get lost in my own despair of the inevitability of my own parents passing one day. But this is the only movie I've seen where a mom dies, and I'm like, I mean, this is shocking, but God, I can keep getting through it. The whimsy of him coming out with the apron and the dish, fucking top notch. Get you someone, get you a life partner who cooks the way Art the Clown does.
Family man. Period.
Art the family man. We love it. We
Vince,
love it.
you're starting to sound like Alexis, who wanted to marry Art the Clown in our original Terrifier episode.
Don't say that because then Rob is going to really think that I'm trying to replace her.
I was already thinking that when I knew you were coming on because of how much you love these movies. I was like, oof, she's going to be a gore lover.
Okay, the reality is Vero's already the gore lover, so it's okay.
And I need you to know, my brother, I hope he's watching and is a witness. I am actually not a major gore lover. I get a little squeamish. But I don't know. I've surprised myself. New year, new me. I don't know.
You know, I think to that point right there, the thing that I think of right there is that this is a very gory movie, but it's a gory movie that even people, to an extent, that don't love gore can still really appreciate and have a good time with. Not in the sense of like, I think of movies like Hostel and stuff like that, where I truly don't like watching those gory scenes. Like, that's not my vibe, but I can watch Art all day long.
You know, again, this movie feels very different for me. I would say if you're squeamish about gore, there's no way this is going to be okay. The Alley kill series, the freaking 15 minutes of torture for Allie that we leave and come back to is horrifying. And honestly, I was trying to eat and I made a mistake. I'm not a squeamish person, but eating during this movie is not a good idea. I don't recommend it. And it's it hits different. It's not good. This is not one where you should be like, "Oh, maybe I'll try it out." To me, the hot dog slice is like easier to consume than this.
I was just thinking that it 100% is. And I was questioning myself if that was okay. But even the second time around watching that kill, that was when I really got up and I had to get a glass of water, rethink my choices, put away my dinner and put it in a Tupperware because it wasn't going to happen.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I am so glad that you brought this up, right? Because that scene obviously is the comparable scene to the hot dog slice scene, right? In if we're comparing the two movies, right? And I think I was even talking to you, Chris, even directly after watching this. I was like, does this top the hot dog slice scene? I don't think it does. And I'm not saying it's not more gory, right? Like we see a lot more. Like we're seeing an eyeball sliced down the face, right? That alone is crazy, right? We're seeing like skin being ripped off and sliced and being stabbed, and acid and salt and bleach, all whatever, all these things that happened, right? But I think the thing that loses the value is that this girl would have been dead way before she actually died, and that right there just it just took a little bit of that oomph away. Like I remember going through that, however long it was, Ryan, 15 minutes, whatever it was, going back and forth, she's still alive. I remember in the theater being like, there's no fucking way she's still alive. It just killed that moment for me. So because of that reason, the hot dog slice scene is still top.
I would argue that several of the kills in this movie are like extra drawn out, and like there's just like a second. He's like, I don't want to kill you, I want to torture and kill you. And the other thing that makes it hit a little different is the hot dog slice scene was all about Tara's reaction to the hot dog slice. This is just us looking into this girl's room, and it's horrifying. I mean, obviously the mom does come home, and I guess that's really how we see her end state, but yeah, it hits different. And we get a lot more time just like sitting in this torture than I think we did with the hot dog slice.
Okay. Look, I get it. I think there's definitely a lot of value there when we think about not only the shock of the hot dog slice, but also the lingering of the hot dog slice and then the focus on the reaction to the hot dog slice. However inappropriate you may have found it, Binks, when we originally watched that movie. But this still does not come anywhere close to the impact of the hot dog scene, because this just felt like more of the same gore that we get in other types of movies, like severing limbs, peeling flesh, a scalp being ripped off, an eyeball being sliced. I feel like it's not to pull a quote from Terrifier, but it's like old hat, right? Like we've been here before. I had never seen the hot dog cut before. I've seen a person bisected, but not that way. Not starting there, not lingering there and seeing the organs in the goop fall out. This was cool, but it was nowhere near impact. It was nowhere near as impactful for me.
It's all about the innovation for you. I get it.
Yeah, points for trying, I guess, but not points for impressing me.
Are we good to go into quality of characters?
Mhm.
Cool. There's a lot that we can compare. Sorry. There's a lot that we can compare between these two movies, but I'm certain that we will all agree the acting, the character building that we get in this story is so much more than we had before. And we've already kind of said in some ways it's a little bit too much, but I enjoyed this family, these characters a lot. And there were a lot of points where I was actually kind of sad to see people die, which is not at all how I felt the first time because I had no relationship with them. And it was a breath of fresh air to get like good acting to go alongside art.
Yeah, 100%. We definitely get way more character development in this film. We get to know the characters a bit more, which allows you to actually feel something, right, for these characters, and especially the protagonist. I thought the acting was much better in this film. I thought that Lauren Lavera, right, did a great job throughout the movie. Of course, Art is going to steal the show, but he definitely wasn't completely in the spotlight in the same way that he was in the first film. And there's just so many elements to this film and these characters, right? And I know we talked about it already, but like we can't forget about the little pale girl, right? Who is one of the creepiest characters that I have seen in years, right? Like that's a vision that could truly give me nightmares. She did such a good job with that.
Yeah, I have to agree in terms of the pale girl. I'm going to bring it back to her again. I already shared my thoughts on her earlier. Wow, just stand out. And even when it comes to Sienna as well and her character, I really like the character development for her and where she was going. A clear indicator right from the beginning that we've got our main star, and although we thought we had that in the first one, turns out we really didn't in terms of the ending. In this case, we're really starting to see a plot. We're starting to see what is a final girl in this universe, right? Or in this franchise. And I really liked how we were building up the story in terms of what is her relationship with her father, what are her interests, who are her friends. And I really liked as well taking a focus on like her psychosis in and of itself and how they're blending in her imagination and her dreams and what she's thinking that she's seeing but not too sure and what is actually reality. I really liked how they did that and the way that she acted that panic, acted that confusion, and also the strength and her love for her brother. Oh, just superb.
I also think like, when it comes to like her friends, we get just enough of them. Not too much. There's not that much you need to know, except they're kind of bad friends for going out on Halloween without making sure their friend was alive, I guess. There's that. But, I don't need like life stories from everyone. We see them interact in school a little bit. Like it was just enough and it worked. I think the family unit worked for me. I personally don't love the parenting in this movie, but it's also a joke. Like I'm it's not that serious obviously, and I understand that life is life, but at the same time, like there is a point where some of this stuff maybe wouldn't have happened if she wasn't so gung ho on her kids being like horrible people and lying to her constantly. Like maybe we could have got ahead of like a little bit of this.
If we're ready to talk about the mom, I'm ready.
Oh,
Um,
No.
snap.
yeah, look, she's just trying to keep it together and be a good parent as much as she possibly can, considering the circumstances, right? That's my thought. I feel like there's nothing that she said or did in the film, to be very honest, where I didn't stop and think to myself, yeah, my mom probably would have said the same thing, except maybe like threatening me with a chancleta instead of a slap to the face.
Oh,
You know,
my
um,
my problem is that it did remind me of my mom, and that's my issue.
Okay,
and
It's a
there we
me
go.
issue.
listen.
And there it is. And there it is.
Honestly, when we sat down for this episode and seeing the comments that Binks has put in Discord about the mom specifically, I really thought I was going to come in here having to fight to defend this mom because I don't know why everybody gives her such a bad fucking time. Like, yes, she's imperfect. Yes, she can be really grating. But also, she's a mother who just lost her life partner, who is trying to make ends meet, a single mom who's raising two either like adolescent or pre-adolescent kids who clearly can just do whatever the fuck they want and not really, value the consequences of their actions. I'd be fucking pissed if my kid almost set the room on fire because you know what? Regardless of us knowing that it wasn't Sienna's fault, there's no way the mom could reasonably look at that situation and think it wasn't Sienna's fault. Like, no.
For sure.
Everybody's just
For sure.
she's trying. She's fucking trying. And my mom has done
But
similar things.
But to add to that, right, like we also learned that the way the father died, right, was super traumatic, right? Like he had mental issues. He took it out on the family. Like this was a traumatic time for this whole family. So it's really easy. And this was a touchy subject even during the watch party, right? Like there was a lot of mixed emotions. It was a mixed bag. It's easy looking from the outside in on this movie and just seeing the character and saying, wow, this mom is really over the top. What is she doing? Blah, 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 blah. But when you really think about what's happening and really the backstory of this family, it's rough. It's rough. And I got to give the mom some credit. I got to give her some credit.
Yeah,
Hey, the kids did, it is that's all I got. That's all I got.
it's
All I'm-
intense. Go ahead,
All
Ryan.
I'm saying is that the kids went through the same trauma that she went through. And it feels like, okay, here's where I come from on this. This is why I even like make the joke of saying like 0 out of 10, which obviously it's not. But the reason I say it is because I've accidentally set a house on fire and it didn't burn down the house, but I'm just saying accidents
Okay.
happen. Like I was accidentally a part of a whole kitchen fire and I didn't do anything wrong, but things happen in the world. And I feel like if y'all have been through this trauma as a family, I would like to feel that they're respecting that within each other and not like, again, it's just reminiscent of being yelled at as a child, okay, for things that
Yeah.
aren't your fault. Like we all have accidents. Don't yell at me about it, okay?
Yeah.
I get that.
I get it.
I'm not trying to make a comment on people and their parenting. It's just a movie that we're watching. That's it.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I get that. I mean, my mom, I didn't really give my mom the opportunity to yell at me the time I burned a blender in the oven. But, I think when I consider the outcome of like life, right? There is this moment, and it hit me during the watch along. It hit me again watching it a separate time. But it's the realization when we have Brooke telling her boyfriend about what Sienna's been through, but also really how much abuse the mother endured. Because, yes, like they all went to the same trauma of losing someone in their life. But let's also not ignore the fact that she was his wife and his girlfriend and his friend before he was ever a father. I don't know how long their relationship was, but it seems like there's a lot of steep trauma there. And it's not just the like loss of a husband, but then the complexities of the loss of your abuser, the loss of someone who was your life partner, and then you kind of peeling back and kind of like dialing back these own defense mechanisms that you probably built up to withstand all of that. And I think what it really did, we talk about like the power of these performances. We talk about what an upgrade this movie has in its acting. I think about the phone call that Sienna has with her mom, and it's the last time she ever gets to tell her she loves her. And it
Yeah.
is the softness with which this mother goes 0 to 100 in the opposite direction, from angry to, I love you too. Enjoy the rest of your night. Like, it's like a moment where the claws retract, the shoulders relax, and it's almost like a little bit of tension, a little bit of stress just kind of like falling off of her. And that moment was again a surprising note of emotion and complexity in a movie where I did not fucking expect it to be.
Yes, yes, and yes. I think when we're looking at the first Terrifier, I think I talked about this in our previous episode where I think they tried to evoke that emotion with the cat lady and art, and it felt flat. You could see right through it. When they have those moments in this movie, I think it strikes gold. That moment, talking a little bit outside of the mom, but with the brother, when they're at the end and she's like caring for him, "Are you okay?" It really did the job. I think it was successful. With the mom, though, going back to the phone call specifically, right when it happened, I was like, "Oh, here we go. I'm ready. She's a goner." I think the predictability on that front for sure. And I think it's maybe because we know that Art's going to try to kill as many people as he can in this movie. That's for sure. It's like a Game of Thrones episode. But nonetheless, unlike the first one, I think, Ryan, you might have mentioned this earlier. I actually feel something for these characters. And so when they do die, ouch.
Definitely. And the big one that like I really kind of battled with how I feel about it is her little brother. Like I understand that he doesn't die, but the brutality and like the things that happened to him and like him kind of being, kidnapped and taken to the amusement park
Yeah.
and him being taken to the amusement park, like it just became a lot. And God, I mean, the scene where she's like, he's getting beat and then she goes and covers him and like takes it, like it's just so intense. And I don't know that I really ever came to terms with how he was being treated in this movie from Art, like how violent it was. I don't know that I was okay with it. It was a tough one because I really liked his character and I really felt for his character just trying to like find his way in the world and kind of, feeling very misunderstood and stuff like that.
So, a few layers to Jonathan here. On the one hand, I love him. He looks very similar to one of my nephews, who's just kind of like a tall, lanky, blonde kid, right? And really just like he has some like nerdy interests, and you're really just discovering yourself. And I love that. It's wholesome. Two, I love the injection of him into this movie and the kind of perspective we get through that. I love how we, first perceive him as like what the next serial killer, because of his morbid interests, only to find out that he's incredibly empathetic and how he doesn't want the girl to see the dead animal, how he doesn't want the dead animal to be fucked around with any longer. To see that he's just a kid who has some interests and he's not defined by those interests. And yeah, he has some growing up to do. There's some severe perspective that he is lacking in terms of like wanting to dress up like Art the Clown, for example. But I loved that.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I don't think he nearly got it as anywhere as bad in this movie. Like he had the trauma of seeing his mom died. Horrible, terrible. Yes, he was kidnapped. Yeah. The rest of it, I think, pales in comparison to what everybody else in the movie went through. So I found it to be okay for me.
It does, but he's a kid. So
Right.
as much as it's minimized, that maximizes it.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me just put this in perspective for you then. He's a kid, but think about what boys that age do. They're just annoying little assholes, really.
Hello?
I'm just saying.
Art had blades and scissors on the end of a string and was swinging it and hitting him with it. I think it's enough.
Yeah, but everybody else had it worse. It's fine. It's good. It's good.
It is
Feel-
harder to watch because he's a kid. I agree with you, Ryan. I think there is something there. Like, I don't think he got it the worst, right, by any means, but I think there is that. I think that was part of the feel, right? Like it's hard to watch kids. It's one thing to see a kid dead after aftermath. It's another to see a kid being tortured or being hurt with brutal objects, right? Like that's just a hard thing to watch.
All I'm saying is I was not stirred as much as I was in the 2018 Halloween when the kid dies in a truck.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It just didn't hit the same for me. But again, maybe it's because we saw Art so much. Maybe it's because I saw Jonathan. Like once he didn't die in that bedroom, I knew, okay, he has plot armor. He's not going to die. So I think
Right.
I just was I was much less scared for him.
So one thing I want to say is perhaps I should retract my family man statement considering this conversation. Second, the plot armor thing. I would agree, and it's because his role in the plot is the person that pieces together whatever universe or plot they're trying to create. Connecting the drawings from the father, being very ominous about, they were luring you here. He's that character. So of course he's got to make it to the end. But one quick thing I want to say about the actor. Wow, he is tall. He is almost just as tall as Art. Second time around, because now of course I see this poor sweet. He's so adorable. The actor himself, I can't remember his name right now, but the actor himself has a TikTok account. Recommend. He's so elated, so excited. And I just thought to myself, the second time around, I'm going to focus on him and his acting. He's a tall, very adorable kid
Oh, he's
who
gonna
does
be-
not look 12. Let's just also call it out for what it is. He's supposed to be 12 in this movie. That boy is a full 16.
And that woman is fully grown. But kids are never kids. It's so weird. I don't like it.
Yeah, but so look to your point, right, about like plot armor and things like that, and maybe the reason why Jonathan lives, who knows, right? There's so much that is not explained in the film, right? That I think, I think we're hopefully going to see, because I do think they confirmed another one, but there's a lot of pieces here that has left a lot of fans guessing, right? And I think even Leone has said like certain things, certain aspects, like the clown cafe scene, right? I think he said there's only 2 people on social media that have actually guessed the exact meaning of that scene. So there's so many things that he has put into this film that he plans on explaining later on in the franchise, including scenes like the ending with Sienna being revived, with the magical sword of power, with the credit scene with Art's head being birthed and things like that, right? So like there's a lot of things that leave you wondering, and it's interesting to think about all of the different theories that people have going around right now.
Okay. Look, I just think there's one, maybe two things that you need to take away from that clown cafe scene. One, you should stop on by, and two, the food's a little funny. That's it. What else is there to figure out?
I have a question for you, Chris. Did that gun scene not trigger something in you?
It absolutely did. It's actually the worst part of the movie for me because, again, we think about just the gun violence in Terrifier and how much that it was like a sobering moment. And here it was just devastating violence. And I think I'm someone like, yeah, again, I won't soapbox about gun violence in America, but to see the level of carnage in that, ooh, it struck a chord with me emotionally that I took a little while to recover from.
You know, that so that is probably it's my worst part, not for the violence, not for the guns. It's actually the worst part for me because that creepy fucking clown cafe song gets stuck in my head and it just freaks me out. It gives me the same kind of nightmares that It's a Small Fucking World gives me in Disneyland. Like, I can't go through that ride and watch all those little dolls singing the same fucking song in different languages. It's creepy as shit, and that song gives me that kind of vibe, and it is truly frightening for me.
Bro, look, I was just at Binks's house earlier and she was singing that shit.
It's too
I'm so
catchy.
sorry.
It's
No,
too
it was-
catchy and
it
it's
was-
creepy.
Honestly, I loved it. It was great.
I think we're about to have all maybe the same worst part, but yeah, no, A1, Ryan. Yeah, look, it's that both the first time and the second time, I thought that scene was eternal and not in a good way. Although I, kind of twisting it just a smidge really quick about, I did enjoy the costuming in it, the set design. I really liked how a major set for such little, I guess, well thought out plot or dialogue or anything.
For no impact on the
For
plot.
no
it had a
impact.
great look.
It had a great look, yes. And so many parts to it. But wow, I could not wait for it to end. And although clearly this movie and like its predecessor love a good drawn out uncomfortable moment, I really would have favored all the other uncomfortable moments possibly over this one. I think there was an opportunity to make it really funny, and it just felt like at first it made me laugh and then it became a drawn out joke, and it was then just starkly sobering and not in a good way. I could do without.
Yeah, I think the only thing that didn't make that scene feel so bad to me is knowing that see, I can't even confidently say that it was a dream because I don't understand what it is, but there was at least an illusion that it was a dream, which made me able to move past the gun thing a little bit easier. But with that being said, what is it? Like, why do we not understand any of the mechanisms of this movie? Like, what is that? Why did their dad predict the future and write it in a notebook? Can anyone make that make sense for me?
Or is Art Sienna's father?
Terrifier 3.
Now that I opened the door
Terrifier
for.
3.
Listen, I hear you on the Terrifier 3 thing, but it is weird to introduce. It's really weird to introduce new mechanisms of a killer at the second series, like at the second spot on the series. Like, I think if you want to go the route of introducing all this kind of like, introducing these fantasy elements, I think this needs to be something besides Terrifier, because it's not like it can be Art the Clown doing something else, but like none of this stuff makes sense. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And if he's gonna explain it in the third one, it's just like a little too late, I think, because now I'm just sitting here looking at this movie like, why did that happen? Why did their dad know everything? And why did he make this really sexual outfit for his freaking daughter?
Okay. Here's what you're missing, Ryan. Terrifier 1, just an homage to Michael Myers. Serial killer on Halloween night. Terrifier 2, homage to Freddy Krueger because that motherfucker's getting you in your dreams. Next time, it's going to be a chainsaw. Or you're going to go to a summer camp. Terrifier 3 at a camp, I'm in.
Oh gosh.
The problem is it's degrading. Like, if it's Freddy, cool, but from there you only have like Jason or Leatherface, and both of those are worse than the other two. So I don't know. The other thing that I need to say is I just, as after we started recording, watched the end credit scene, and literally, what is that and why did that happen?
Okay.
That's horrifying and
That
not in the
is
fun way.
that is my second worst part of the movie. It's tied there with the massive gun violence in the clown cafe scene. I was there for the clown cafe scene. Aside from that, I'm even there for him lighting the musician on fire. Totally fine. Minus those shooting kills, I'm in it. But that scene to take Vicky from this studious sister who's just trying to go pick Tara up after a rough night out, to getting mauled, to then killing or viciously attacking Monica Brown, to then being committed, to then birthing him again. What? No,
Just his head.
it's
Just his head.
weird.
It was
Just his head.
wild.
It's too wild, and it also brought back my least favorite prosthetic, which is her face. Like,
Mm.
I hated it, and it didn't get better. Maybe got worse, honestly. It's just, what is that? Why? And also, why is that in the post credits? Like, that is a significant plot point.
I feel like this movie is just one downright fever dream that I'm sometimes thinking that was fun. Other times, what in the hell just happened to me? So yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily. I would say that the worst part is tied for both. And to your point earlier about David Leone basically leaving these hints and Easter eggs to explain a further universe, it's giving Kevin Feige MCU in some ways, in terms of throwing some things out there and seeing what sticks, but not as well elaborate, I'm sure, as a non-horror franchise, obviously. But um, I don't know. I agree with you, Ryan. Although I obviously am a fan of both the first and the second. Now, come the third time, that's where I start to feel like, all right, are we doing too much? Like, what's going to happen here? You got to really sell it to me. And I hope that they clean up the movie very well.
Me too. And the last thing that I'm going to rant about, that they also pulled from inspiration from that they all also pulled inspiration from the MCU for, is this runtime. I feel like we haven't talked about it enough. They spend way too much time at the party, way too much time at the amusement park. I don't need Terrifier to be more than 2 hours. I honestly need it to be about an hour and a half. And it's just too long. It's not even like a pacing thing. It's just a length thing. And with that, I'd like to say that I do think I should have hacked this movie, because now that all we've done is talk trash,
Oh my
I
god.
like it even less.
It's too late. You
Wait a
can't go
second.
back and undo
And
it
the
until
post
December
credit scene.
31st.
To be fair, the post credit scene really changed things, because what is that?
We should have never done this section of the podcast.
It's okay.
Hack this. Hack this.
You can't take that hack. Nope. You can't rehash the slash until the end of December, when you can look back. And I promise you, there are some worse movies for you to waver on.
It's okay. It's only a couple weeks away, and I don't think there's anything else that I've been very hacky this year. I think I've done some generous hacks. This is a generous slash, so just know where I stand. It's okay. I don't need to change it. Just know where I stand.
Hey, it sounds like Ryan's probably not watching this one anytime soon, but I will say that I will definitely be watching this one again. I will be revisiting the franchise again. This is a great addition in the realm of horror, right? And I really love watching this one. I love watching the first one, this one with friends, especially with friends who haven't seen the films before. I can't wait for the next installment. I hope it does it justice. We'll see. But I definitely think it has rewatch value.
Yeah, I have to agree that there's rewatchability once again, just like the ending of the first one, in the sense that you're going to want to see these again to really understand what the heck awaits you for Terrifier 3. And there's just enough fun moments, a good time, laughs, again, all of the feels to make this worth rewatching. All that said, for me personally, I'm just like I said for Terrifier, I'm going to take a bit. I've rewatched both of these movies now twice in 1 month. That is 4 times in general than I ever thought that I would be watching this movie. So I'm going to take an art hiatus. I hope he doesn't miss me too much.
I'm not against a rewatch just to see how I feel, just because my feelings with Terrifier changed so much over a couple of years. So at some point, I think I could possibly revisit it and see how it goes.
Yeah, so I've watched Terrifier and Terrifier 2 so many times in the last 30 days. I think I'm tapped out until next October, but it is for sure going to be part of the October lineup. You know, I said it in the Rewind episode. It's going to be this. It's going to be Trick or Treat and the entire Halloween franchise. A little bit of Hellfest mixed in there, and I'm done. It's going to be a good time. Now, for that, though, I think we are leaving with a lot to sit on, a lot to chew on, a lot to consider, a lot of feelings that need to be sorted for Ryan before the end of the year episode. We've talked about a lot, folks, but there you have it. Terrifier 2 from 2022 has still officially earned a Universal Slash. Now, we've certainly had a robust discussion here, but it doesn't end here by any means. We want to know what you think. You can join in on the conversation by hanging out with us for free over in our Discord. You can click the link in our show notes to sign up. Ryan?
It's not like you asked, like I knew I was doing this.
You always do it.
I literally never do it.
Okay. You do it when Mac's not here.
That's not true. Sean did it last time. Okay. And if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, consider becoming one of our patrons. Visit patreon.com/hackerslash to enjoy more of the show with early access, extended episodes, bonus content, and live shows.
We'll see you next time, folks. And remember, if you're going to put that in your mouth, you have to pay for it.
Bye.
Peace.
Adios.
Nice.
I just want to note, I've done it like once since it ever
Same.
changed, which was like 6 months ago.
No, that's you've done it a couple times.
No.
Yeah.
That was great. That
Wow.
was hilarious.
What a time. What a time. Well, folks, we've been on quite the journey together. Ryan has some regrets, but it's okay. She'll probably forget those regrets by the time December 31st rolls around. I swear to God, if you rehash this slash on my fucking birthday, ooh.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
Technically
Illegal.
it's
Rob-
before my birthday, but
Rob had the perfect comment, which is, can't I change my vote in the post-credit scene? This is the post-credit scene, you know?
I want to also point out, Ryan, that you talk a lot of trash about post-credit scene, but B-sides are some of the best parts of our podcast. So we're gonna need.
That's not a post-credit scene.
It's a
That's
whole
extra-
post-credit. It's
It's a
post-credit.
B-side. It's extra content.
It's post-credits.
It's not the same.
No one got the assignment right tonight. Chris, at one point we were like horror soulmates, but you've gone astray. Rob, I'm sorry. I need less hippie Ryan and more no bullshit Ryan. Zombie ritual, and I just don't see eye to eye, and it's too early to tell with you. Life is Binks.
I was no BS Ryan for Barbarian, and y'all liked it. So make it make sense, Rob.
Facts.
Well, folks, we're going to be back at it again on Sunday, not on YouTube, but in our Discord for the patrons. So feel free to check us out then. We will be talking about the December patron pick, Freaky from 2020. I have yet to see this, but the Haunted House at Halloween Horror Nights was fantastic. We've talked about a lot here. We definitely want to keep the conversation going. Patrons, you'll get this episode in a few days when it's done being edited. But until then, I think we all have to bid you farewell. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
It's been real. It's been fun.
Later. It's been good.